Black technology, the super empire that spans two worlds. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126, Breakthrough in Room Temperature Superconducting Materials Causes Global Sensation. What happened to Lingjing technology today is destined to leave a strong mark in the history of the capital market. In history, there has never been a listed company that has soared 10 trillion market value in one day. There has never been a listed company that has evaporated nearly 10 trillion market value in about a minute, and there has never been a listed company that has recovered within 10 minutes after evaporating nearly 10 trillion market value. And these three situations happen to the same listed company on the same day, which is unprecedented and probably will never happen again. With such an extreme roller coaster trend, even quick-acting heart-saving pills may not be able to save people with bad hearts. Lingjing technology stock was so violent today that the A-share market was turned upside down. Although it was not included in several important indexes, the impact on the market is still terrifying, and the size is there. Such a huge trading volume means that it has formed a super terrifying capital siphon effect on other sectors of the market, draining the stock liquidity of other sectors. However, at this moment, people in the market are discussing the abnormal trend after 10/22, and all kinds of rumors are flying. At around 11:39, the exchange issued a statement on the abnormal situation of Lingjing Technology's bidding transaction. The exchange has noticed that the confirmation of Lingjing Technology stock transaction was slow after the opening today. The exchange has paid attention to the relevant situation at the first time and is investigating the relevant reasons. Please pay attention to the relevant announcements of the exchange in a timely manner. If you encounter any problems or have any questions, please contact the securities company you designated for trading for help immediately, hereby announced. At this moment, the stock comment area and communication group were full of discussions. I asked the account manager of the brokerage firm, and he said that the delay in this transaction may be related to the surge in the number of orders for this stock, and the system could not handle it. Do you believe it? Ha. I believe it. I don't believe you. Last year, I was still watching the fun of GameStop unplugging the network cable. It seems that unplugging the network cable is really effective. I don't care about my face. I hung it up for a long time and there was no response. I couldn't buy or sell, and I couldn't withdraw the order. You can hang it up and withdraw it, but you can't sell it below the transaction price, which means it is an invalid order to be hung up. It's the same. I'm still submitting the order. I don't know what's going on. It's a ripoff. At first I thought it was because my cell phone signal was bad because I was on a business trip. I made a profit but couldn't sell it. I wanted to cancel the order and re-enter the price, but the order was always pending. I really wanted to curse. When the price fell to 25, I submitted a purchase order for Lingjing Technology. The price of the buy order was lower than the trend price. I didn't see the transaction and the balance of funds until the closing. The stock price rose to 103 yuan before the closing. If I didn't make the transaction, I would strongly demand compensation for the loss. The trend of Lingjing Technology today tells us a truth. When stocks can make money, ordinary people can't even buy stocks. There is an insider. Terminate the transaction JPG. Today, Lingjing Technology undoubtedly staged a bizarre trading downtime event that is enough to be recorded in the annals of financial history. The market is already full of rumors and conspiracy theories. Some say that it was because of the crazy influx of funds that Lingjing Technology formed a huge number of orders, causing the trading server to overload and crash. Some people also said that it was because of the short positions that were liquidated and the huge losses and the trillions of debt owed. A large number of securities companies were implicated. The securities sector fell into a limit downtrend without any warning at around 10 o'clock, and then the banking sector and the insurance sector also began to fall sharply. In order to prevent the triggering of systemic financial risks, some unspeakable mysterious power was used to intervene. What exactly is the reason? There are different opinions among market players. Some people are even worried that this means that there are greater loopholes and hidden dangers in the trading system. Is it possible to become the fuse of the next Treasury Bond 327 incident? Mentioning the 327 incident, many investors who have experienced that period of history are still frightened. It was a famous financial turmoil in the history of mainland securities. Due to illegal transactions and other reasons, the Treasury bond futures market experienced violent fluctuations and huge losses. This incident not only made many investors lose their money, but also caused serious damage to the reputation and stability of the securities market. Today, similar abnormal trading doubts have appeared in the A-share market again, which can't help but remind investors of that unbearable history. At 1300 hours in the afternoon opened on time. The much-anticipated Lingjing Technology stock price continued to surge, once reaching 116 yuan, and the increase was further expanded to plus 670.76%. At the same time, the trading volume once again released a huge amount. The volume at this time is normal, and investors also found that their accounts can be normally entrusted to place orders. After experiencing the exciting roller coaster experience in the early trading, many investors who hold chips saw the stock price surge again at this moment. Some people chose to sell part of the money to secure their profits, which also caused the stock's trading volume to increase rapidly in the afternoon. However, the market funds took over this huge amount of selling pressure, and there was no outrageous dive again, because the fundamentals of Lingjing Technology, which holds 3 trump cards, are too strong. When it fell back to around 85 yuan, the funds were even more brainless to take over, and a lot of funds were taken over below 100 yuan. The afternoon fluctuations, the lowest price dropped to 85 yuan and could not go further, because the takeover was too fierce, and many funds saw that the takeover was so powerful, but they were not panicked. The willingness to sell became lower and lower as time went by, and the selling pressure became smaller and smaller, and then the stock price slowly climbed. In the last half hour of the closing, the fluctuation of Lingjing Technology stock price narrowed and climbed all the way in the shock. As of 1500 hours, Lingjing Technology closed at 127.27 yuan after the market, an increase of plus 745.65%, a daily amplitude of 721.26%, a daily turnover of 698.635 billion, a daily turnover rate of 13.72%, and an after-hours market value of 11.047 trillion. Today is destined to be recorded in the annals of financial history. Lingjing Technology has created a series of records that have never been seen before and will probably be difficult to come by in the future. The net increase in market value on that day was nearly 10 trillion, which is unprecedented. The total turnover for the day was 698.6 billion, setting a new record for the largest single-day turnover since the stock was listed. It is also the largest single-day turnover of a single stock in the history of A-shares. I am afraid that no one can break this record, even Lingjing Technology itself. The total turnover of the Shanghai Stock Exchange Index next door today was only 350 billion, and the turnover of the entire Shanghai Stock Exchange Index was only about half of Lingjing Technology's turnover. Today, because of Lingjing Technology, the total turnover of the two markets has increased to 1.35 trillion, but Lingjing Technology alone accounts for 51.75% of the total turnover of the entire market. Lingjing Technology has created a series of unrepeatable miracles today, but it is not without cost. The sky-high turnover of 698.6 billion yuan in the day has almost drained the liquidity of the entire market. Everyone is frantically attacking Lingjing Technology, which has also caused the liquidity of other stocks to drop sharply. Not only do other stocks not have liquidity supplements, but they have to be drained of more liquidity. Because some stockholders do not have extra funds, they choose to sell other stocks to free up funds to grab Lingjing Technology. This stock soared more than 7 times today, but more than 4,850 stocks in the entire market were all in the red, and because of the siphoning away of a huge amount of liquidity, individual stocks experienced a large-scale limit down, with more than 560 stocks hitting the limit down in the entire market, and more than 1,670 stocks fell by more than 7 percentage points. After-market data showed that Lingjing Technology ushered in a day of retail investors surge today, with a net increase of 1.83 million retail investors. The number of retail investors of this stock reached an astonishing 8.35 million, which is another unprecedented data record. Lingjing Technology has become an absolute retail super base camp. If this posture is not good, the number of shareholders will exceed the 10 million mark before the end of the year. The army of retail investors rarely won over institutions in this stock in history, and large funds were seriously empty, and there were even short sellers who begged to let go and left the market in tears with a loss of more than 500 billion. The reason why retail investors could win and institutional funds miss out is not that retail investors are better than institutional funds. The most fundamental reason is that Xiao Yu stood on the side of thousands of small and medium-sized retail investors, so the army of retail investors won so heartily. If it weren't for Xiao Yu, retail investors would definitely be the leeks that stand guard and get harvested as usual. Lingjing Technology now has more than 8 million retail investors holding shares. Most people will not jump out easily. At least 5 million retail investors intend to invest in value and hold for a long time to eat dividends. Because only long-term holdings can exempt dividend income from personal income tax. According to the regulations of A-shares, if holding shares for less than 1 month, dividends and bonuses are taxed at a rate of 20%. If holding shares for more than 1 month and less than 1 year, the tax rate will be halved to 10%. If holding shares for more than 1 year, dividends and bonuses are exempt from personal income tax. As long as the shareholders want to eat dividends for a long time, they will definitely not be able to hold on. Dividends and bonuses after 1 year do not need to be taxed. For those institutional funds that missed the opportunity, now they can either watch and no longer participate in the stock, or they can only chase the rise and carry the sedan share. At the same time, today's news hotspots and news headlines are dominated by room temperature superconductors and Lingjing Technology. Mobile phones don't need to be charged anymore? Room temperature superconductors have made a breakthrough, subverting physics. Are you ready for the superconducting era? Enter the technology circle and reveal what room temperature superconducting technology is. The world's first room temperature superconductor was born. Xiao Yu won the holy grail of the materials community, and may completely change all technologies that use electricity. Breakthrough. How will room temperature superconductivity change the world? The historic breakthrough that will definitely win the Nobel Prize. The breakthrough in room temperature superconductors has allowed Xiao Yu to lock in the Nobel Prize next year in advance. New breakthroughs in room temperature superconductors. Will they really subvert nuclear fusion and ultra-high voltage technology? Room temperature superconductors became popular overnight. Is a subversive breakthrough coming? The capital market is boiling, and Lingjing Technology stock price soared more than 6 times that day, with a net increase in market value of more than 8 trillion. Breakthrough in room temperature superconductivity has helped Xiao Yu's net worth soar to 4.78 trillion, about $660 billion US, equal to the sum of the net worth of 3 former world richest men. Musk. Breakthrough in 333 Kelvin, about 60 degrees Celsius. How will room temperature superconductivity change our lives? Room temperature superconductivity. The world may usher in a huge change, a future where scientific breakthroughs and challenges coexist. Shocking. Breakthrough in room temperature superconductivity technology may reshape the world pattern. The news headlines were flooded, the whole network was hot, and it caused a huge sensation worldwide. Even European and American media had to report it. Even people who usually don't pay much attention to this kind of news have paid attention to it, because it is so hot. Friends around them are following the trend to discuss this matter, and even WhatsApp moments are following the trend to post related topics. If you don't understand it, you can't integrate into social networking. Xiao Yu's skyrocketing net worth is also one of the hot topics discussed by people. Now his nominal net worth of 5.63 trillion is more than enough to equal the sum of the net worth of 3 Musks. At the press conference, the video of Xiao Yu's public demonstration shot by the reporter also went viral on the internet, and some hosts even analyzed and interpreted it frame by frame. As the inventor of the world's first room temperature superconducting material, Xiao Yu has won the Nobel Prize in Physics next year with this achievement. If he doesn't win the prize, whoever wins the Nobel Prize in Physics next year will be embarrassed. Some netizens even began to joke that the pressure is on the Nobel Prize jury. If a European and American person came up with a room temperature superconducting material, he would definitely win the prize next year, but Xiao Yu is not a European and American person, which makes it difficult for the Nobel Prize judges. Should he give the prize or not? Chapter 127, the country attaches great importance to room temperature superconductivity. Around 3 p.m., just as the whole network was hotly discussing, the media was reporting everywhere, and all kinds of hot searches were dominating the charts. People from the National Security Bureau, the Ministry of Science and Technology, the military and other relevant departments had all appeared in Linzhou in a low-key manner. Xiao Yu was not surprised. With such a big news and such a big movement, it was impossible for the national level to not see it, and it was even more impossible for them not to understand the significance of the emergence of room temperature superconducting materials. However, such a quick action and such a large lineup also surprised Xiao Yu. Half an hour later, Xiao Yu met them at Avic Linfa E Company. The person in charge of the team this time was Zhao Haiyang, and Ying Weiping also came. In the team that came with him, there were also experts in superconducting research. Xiao Yu also provided them with a piece of room temperature superconducting material, and asked these experts to test the material with relevant instruments and equipment in the company's basic application research department. In the end, the experts confirmed that this was the room temperature superconducting material, and Xiao Yu's description at the press conference was not exaggerated at all. Then the two sides sat down and talked in a reception room of the company. Zhao Haiyang looked at Xiao Yu and said, "Comrade Xiao Yu, the room temperature superconducting material you developed is of great significance and has a huge impact. It complies with the regulations on scientific and technological confidentiality. The country attaches great importance to this and needs to provide high standard protection and control for this material and related technologies." Zhao Haiyang added, "In general, your company cannot put this material on the commercial market at will, and you can't sell it to anyone you want. You need to report to the relevant state departments for review, and exports will be strictly controlled." Xiao Yu nodded, "I know that. The impact of room temperature superconducting materials is so great that it far exceeds the mass production technology of graphene materials. Once it is announced, it will definitely be listed as a top secret technology by the state for protection." Xiao Yu naturally knows this and is not surprised at all. After a while, Ying Weiping, who was also present, asked, "What is the production capacity of room temperature superconducting materials? What is the production cost?" Xiao Yu had already calculated the data for this matter a long time ago. He pretended to be thoughtful for a while, and then replied, "The specific production cost will have to wait until the factory is built, but a rough estimate is that the cost of each gram of room temperature superconducting material may be between 800 and 1,000 yuan. Ying Weiping was very surprised, "So the cost is not very high. It is roughly the same as the selling price of scientific research-grade graphene materials produced by your unit, which is only 7 or 8 times higher than that. It is much lower than I expected." Xiao Yu shook his head and said, "You can't generalize like this. The demand for use scenarios is large. If this cost is used for long-distance power transmission cables, it will definitely be unbearable. For example, for military use. If we use this new material to develop an improved version of the J-20 fighter with high maneuverability and vertical takeoff and landing capabilities, the fuselage structure will require at least 3 or 4 tons of room temperature superconducting nanocomposite materials to achieve it. Not counting other costs, the cost of room temperature superconducting materials alone is 3.2 billion to 4 billion. According to the current public cost of a J-20 fighter of about 700 million, this is enough to build 5 or 6 J-20 fighters." Xiao Yu added, "The synthesis of this room temperature superconducting material not only consumes a huge amount of electricity and energy, but also takes a long time to synthesize. This is the key factor restricting production capacity. If the production line is expanded at any cost to increase the absolute output, the total cost will be astronomical. The key is that I think there is a lot of room for improvement in synthesis technology. By then, so many production lines will be eliminated by improved technology just after they are built. Would that be a waste of astronomical investment?" Ying Weiping nodded to himself, thought for a moment, looked at Xiao Yu again and asked, "What annual production capacity can be achieved in the short term?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu hesitated for a moment and said, 5 or 600 tons should be possible. Hearing this number, Ying Weiping immediately said, "Such a low production capacity is not enough for military use." Xiao Yu didn't respond to him, but Zhao Haiyang next to him smiled and said, "We are lucky enough to develop it before the European and American people. Besides, such expensive material costs 800 to 1 billion yuan per ton, and 500 tons alone will cost 500 billion yuan. The total military budget this year is 1.45 trillion yuan, which accounts for 30% of the total military expenditure. Even if we really produce 500 tons, the military may not be able to afford it. What is certain is that the military will definitely not spend 500 billion to purchase 500 tons of room temperature superconducting materials. This number is really too large. The purchase of graphene materials is more than 10 billion or 20 to 30 billion, but the amount of room temperature superconducting materials is not large, but the budget has many zeros, and the military cannot afford it. Otherwise, it will have to cut other budgets on a large scale. Zhao Haiyang turned to look at Xiao Yu and said, "But Comrade Xiao Yu, even if the military cannot purchase 500 tons, it will not be allowed to flow into the civilian market in the short term." Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Of course, we will produce as much as the military needs. This time with a breakthrough in room temperature superconducting materials, I want to use this technological breakthrough to apply for a project to develop 2 military aircraft based on room temperature superconducting materials." Zhao Haiyang couldn't help but ask curiously, "Oh?" Xiao Yu said methodically, "All electrically driven military fighters and military transport aircraft with rapid vertical takeoff and landing capabilities." After this, Zhao Haiyang, Ying Weeping and others looked at each other in surprise. Zhao Haiyang looked at Xiao Yu and couldn't help but smile. "I have an idea. I will write a document and submit it. Although the way of Avic Linfa E Company is a bit wild, it may really create miracles like room temperature superconducting materials. I think the possibility of superiors agreeing is very high." Xiao Yu smiled and nodded. "Then I will wait for the news. The project application will definitely be approved." Xiao Yu is very confident in this. His importance to the country has reached a new level because of the birth of room temperature superconducting materials. Secondly, Avic Linfa E Company does not need subsidies from the state to develop aircraft. All funds and research and development are handled by Xiao Yu himself. The state only needs to give an approval document. If it doesn't make a name for itself, the state has no burden. If it really makes a name for itself, it will be a big surprise. No matter how you look at it, there is no reason not to approve it. Finally, Zhao Haiyang looked at Xiao Yu and said solemnly, "Comrade Xiao Yu, you are national treasure and strategic level national talent, and your safety must be taken seriously. Especially if you need to go abroad in the future, you may need to report in advance and obtain special approval from relevant parties." Zhao Haiyang added, "This is not a restriction on your personal freedom, but a protection of your personal safety. As for going abroad, it is recommended that you go as little as possible unless it is necessary. Don't go to some so-called academic invitations from the international community, as it is not ruled out that the European and American people will detain you." Ying Weeping also said, "If the Nobel Prize organized by the European and American people is really awarded to you, you can ask someone to go to the scene to receive it on your behalf on the grounds that you are busy with business and cannot spare the time. At that time, you can just make an online video connection and give a speech of thanks for the award. Don't go to receive the award in person. It is very risky." Hearing this, Xiao Yu couldn't help but laugh and said, "Given the nature of Westerners, this award is unlikely to be given. I guess it's either because there are no relevant papers published, or because they want to give it to older scholars with academic achievements. The reason is that they are worried that these old scientists won't last for a few more years, so they want to give them the award first. You are so young, so you should wait in line behind," etc. When this was said, Zhao Haiyang and others couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 128, Personal Safety Considerations. The Nobel Prize held by the West is a monopoly of the right to speak in science and technology. Any Nobel Prize winner is actually a super talented person in their respective fields. The key is that there are many such people every year, and those who do not win the prize are not much worse than those who win. Every year, there are so many people who are qualified to win this prize, but who to choose and who not to choose is up to the West. In history, there was a scientist from the country of Goose. Mendeleev, a chemical giant and the father of the periodic table, was recognized to have achieved more than most Nobel Prize winners in chemistry. He applied for the Nobel Prize for 9 consecutive years, but he never won the prize in his lifetime. This is evident. Xiao Yu was not interested in this award held by the West at all. To put it another way, even if this award was really extremely objective and fair, he would not have accepted it. Moreover, he was playing with black technology. There is a saying that it is a divine tool in the world, and it cannot be shown to others. Otherwise, where's the saying of ancestral secret recipes? It is extremely stupid to publish papers, receive awards in foreign countries, and apply for patents with black technology in hand. Zhao Haiyang and others stayed for nearly 2 hours, and only said goodbye and left after completing the communication with Xiao Yu on various matters. This time, multiple departments came for room temperature superconducting materials at the same time, and they just announced it in the morning and sent people over in the afternoon. This efficiency is so fast, which shows the importance of this matter at the national level. Xiao Yu is undoubtedly the absolute focus of the moment, and all parties attach great importance to him, including the national level. All kinds of media outside want to interview him, because topics related to Xiao Yu have huge traffic at the moment, but after he accepted a brief interview with Yang media in the morning, he refused to accept any media interviews, and he did not appear in the public eye as soon as the press conference ended. In the face of countless praises and exclamations from the outside world, Xiao Yu not only did not float, but now he is surprisingly calm and more cautious than before. Because Xiao Yu knows that his risk index is higher than ever before. The advent of room temperature superconducting materials means that a major reshuffle is about to come. Judging from the previous two industrial revolutions, this is not the case. Those industrial giants and capital groups in Europe and magnesium must be anxious, because no one in the West has mastered this technology. The emergence of room temperature superconducting materials has a huge impact. It can truly reshape the global industrial landscape, and it is also a high-end industry. Dongda can achieve superconductivity empowerment with the breakthrough of this material, so that its own high-end industry can be upgraded again, and it can beat the existing industrial system in the West without any resistance. The great impact and deep interests involved are self-evident. Now that Dongda has suddenly mastered this technology, how can the people of Europe and the United States not be anxious? How can the squid angsha not be anxious? Over the years, many scientists who have made great achievements in their respective fields have suddenly died inexplicably. Either lucky or depressed suicide, and the reasons cannot be thought about in detail. With so many precedents, Xiao Yu naturally dare not be careless. What's more, this time he cut a lot of Mr. Wong in the capital market, and the feud was completely made. Xiao Yu believes that there are many people in the world who want him to disappear, and they will definitely become more and more as time goes by. We still have to find a way to get N800 from Blue Star World as soon as possible. Xiao Yu, who has a Davik Linfa E company, was alone in his office at the moment, nodding his head secretly as he thought about it. As long as he had the N800 nano armor, his life safety would be almost absolutely guaranteed, and he could boldly show up in public. Now that he has achieved more and more success, he has to shrink back because of the worry about safety issues, and he even has to be careful when he goes out. Xiao Yu is actually very unhappy with this kind of life. But now he can only do this, and he has to be careful. Without the N800 nano armor protection, a 7.62 caliber peanut can easily take him away. He can only keep a low profile and not be too extravagant, so as not to capsize in the gutter and lose his life. We have to find a way to get the organic body technology of Blue Star World as soon as possible. Xiao Yu suddenly realized that he also needed this thing very much. When talking with Zhao Haiyang and others before, the other party emphasized not to go abroad unless necessary. Obviously, they knew that Xiao Yu had gone abroad to Africa many times since last year. This must be easy for the country to find out, and Xiao Yu did not deliberately conceal it. He went abroad to Africa many times because of the so-called gold mine, but this gold mine was the void gold mine that Xiao Yu created to cover up his tracks, so he had to go to Africa to collect the gold every once in a while. If I had known it would be so troublesome, I would not have gone to Blue Star to get gold to save trouble. Xiao Yu shook his head helplessly, but it was done. In order to make it go on, he could only go through the process according to the original plan. But now there is a new problem. Even if Xiao Yu goes to Africa to collect the gold regularly according to the established process plan, it is not feasible. Because his current net worth is already there, the so-called gold mine in Africa is only valued at hundreds of millions. For this little gold mine, as the founder of Lingjing Technology and the world's richest man with a net worth of trillions, it seems a bit strange to go there in person to collect the gold. In the past, his worth was not so high, and the company was small, so it was completely understandable to attach so much importance to it, but now it does seem very inconsistent. Xiao Yu thought about it and decided that an organic body could solve this problem. Remotely control the stand-in to do it, and use a body with a different appearance as a stand-in to deal with it. To the outside world, this stand-in is equivalent to an employee or subordinate of the company, and it is very reasonable to let the subordinates do it. Moreover, there are many things that the original body is not suitable to show up, and he cannot trust others and must do it in person. With such a black technology stand-in, it is very convenient. Xiao Yu thought about it for a while, and had a general idea in his mind. When things on Earth are almost arranged, he will go to the Blue Star World to find a way to get a few organic bodies as soon as possible, including N800 nano weapons. With these two black technologies, it will be very convenient to do anything in the future. Xiao Yu put away his thoughts and immediately called Yunshu at the headquarters of Lingjing Technology and instructed, "You go and apply for the company's suspension of trading." The company's stock price has fluctuated greatly in the short term. In order to protect the interests of investors, the company will suspend trading and verify the stock trading situation. Hearing this, Yunshu on the other end of the phone was surprised. It was only one day after the resumption of trading today, and they had to apply for another suspension? But she immediately asked, "How long is the expected suspension?" Xiao Yu thought for a while and said, "It is likely to be about 1 or 2 months, but the application is expected to be no more than 3 months. The decision to suspend trading again was to avoid the company's stock price from fluctuating violently later, because Xiao Yu did not respond positively to the production capacity of room temperature superconducting materials at the press conference, and did not even mention it. Now most people outside believe that room temperature superconducting materials will soon be mass-produced. If mass production can really be achieved quickly, the stock price will continue to rise tomorrow and continue to easily set a new historical high. However, in order to avoid overstimulating magnesium west and making it desperate, Xiao Yu will claim that room temperature superconducting materials do not have the capacity for mass production and cannot be commercialized on a large scale. He had said the same thing to Zhao Haiyang and others before, and reported a production capacity of about 500 tons. After all, even if room temperature superconducting materials can be produced on a large scale now, it will not be completed immediately in 1 or 2 years to upgrade the industry with this. This time window may stimulate Magnesium West to take risks. If Magnesium West is completely pessimistic and believes that it has completely missed the next round of technological revolution, the adventurists within it may take advantage of this critical time window before Dongda has completed entering the superconducting era and directly turn the table in advance to make a gamble, and still have a chance to survive. Dongda's current foundation is definitely not afraid of Magnesium West turning the table, but facing the enemy's desperate fight, the cost of winning will definitely be greater. The most rational approach is of course to win the final victory at the lowest cost possible. The ancients knew the truth that the army of sorrow will win, so they have to give the other party some hope, so that they think they still have a chance without a desperate fight. In this way, there will inevitably be huge differences within the Western magnesium industry, which will make opportunists raise their heads. When fighting to the death cannot guarantee a 100% win, since there are still other opportunities for a comeback, they definitely don't want to go all in. However, once it is announced that room temperature superconducting materials cannot be mass-produced, once this news is released, the company's stock price will definitely fluctuate violently in the short term. Xiao Yu chose to suspend the company's trading and release the news during the suspension period, and also use the suspension period to raise the company's two major businesses of graphene and AI to hedge the expectation of a decline in room temperature superconducting materials. After all, even if the room temperature superconducting materials are removed, relying solely on the two major businesses of AI and graphene is enough to support the current market value of Lingjing Technology. Suspension can also prevent shareholders from panic trading. Over time, panic will slowly digest. As long as the company's two major businesses of graphene and AI grow strongly during the suspension period, new expectations will be formed. When the stock resumes trading, not only will there be no panic selling, but Lingjing Technology stock price will continue to be strongly supported by the two major businesses of AI and graphene, and it is not impossible to continue to attack new highs. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129, All those who are engaged in controlled nuclear fusion come to inquire and investigate. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the highest-level news broadcast in China also reported the news of the breakthrough of room temperature superconductivity, and it took a full 2 minutes to report. It is no exaggeration to say that people who can appear on this news for a few seconds are already at a height that ordinary people cannot reach. Xiao Yu appeared in this news in the form of an interview. This is a picture of a reporter from Yang Media interviewing him during the day. He mentioned some matters related to room temperature superconductivity, but there was no substantive information. Especially for how to achieve the synthesis of room temperature superconducting materials, Even if Xiao Yu wanted to reveal some technical details in the interview, the country would not release them to prevent the risk of technical leaks. If graphene materials are the king of new materials in the 21st century, then room temperature superconducting materials can be called the holy grail of the materials community. This material is truly enough to affect the national destiny of a country, and the level of technical confidentiality is only higher than that of graphene mass production technology. An hour later, Lingjing Technology issued a suspension announcement. Upon application, the company's stock will be suspended from the opening of the market on Tuesday, November 1st, and will resume trading after the disclosure of the synthesis announcement. The suspension is expected to last no more than 3 months. The company reminds investors to pay attention to the risks of secondary market transactions. The village also approved it at the speed of light, because they were also afraid that Lingjing Technology would fluctuate violently tomorrow. Now the company took the initiative to apply to enter the small black room, and of course it was approved at the speed of light. The short-term funds that came in today were originally planning to leave tomorrow when the market opened high, but they didn't expect to be locked up for 3 months before leaving, which was very depressing. However, for long-term value investors, it doesn't matter, especially for investors who are ready to receive dividends for a long time. As long as the company pays dividends stably, the suspension of trading will not affect their dividends. Xiao Yu has arranged the affairs of Lingjing Technology. In the short term, there should be no need to pay too much attention. The daily operations of the company are managed by Su Changming. In the days that followed, Xiao Yu still focused his main energy on the layout of AVIC Linfa E Company. With the advent of room temperature superconducting materials, Xiao Yu currently only gave a production capacity of more than 500 tons. Previously, he communicated with Zhao Heiyang and others and confirmed the preliminary allocation of this material and the field in which it would be used first. Given the current limited production capacity and extremely high prices, the allocation of this material must be carefully calculated. 3 directions have been confirmed so far. First of all, it is military use. This is beyond doubt. The priority of national defense strategic security needs no further explanation. For the room temperature superconducting materials allocated to the military field, AVIC Linfa E will keep half of the quota for all electric aircraft, and the rest will be supplied to other national defense military enterprises. Military enterprises that have demand for room temperature superconducting materials can come to AVIC Linfa E to purchase them. The company can supply them with approval from relevant departments. Secondly, in the field of microelectronics, including superconducting materials that need to be used, there are not many subfields with a large boost in terms of usage, and the upgraded products in this field will most likely be given priority to the military or some special national institutions. Civilian use will definitely not be available in the short term. Finally, in the field of controlled nuclear fusion, room temperature superconducting materials are key materials for controlled nuclear fusion technology. Further, this is also a key material for the energy revolution. We must squeeze out a part of it for research in the field of controlled nuclear fusion. On the second day of the press conference, that is, November 1st, several major scientific research units and institutions in China that study controlled nuclear fusion technology sent people to Linz how to conduct research at AVIC Linfa. When they learned about the breakthrough in room temperature superconducting materials, they were skeptical at first, but they were immediately excited after confirmation. One of the very important reasons why controlled nuclear fusion technology is so difficult and is ridiculed as eternal 50 years is that when the reactor is running, its internal temperature can reach hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius, and the existing known materials cannot withstand such ultra-high temperatures at all, so they can only be constrained by the magnetic field generated by electric energy. But the problem is that when electric energy generates a magnetic field, most of the energy is lost through heat due to the existence of resistance. The tokamak nuclear fusion device currently used in China has never been able to solve the pain point that the energy input is greater than the energy output, and it cannot achieve a net output of energy, so it is not practical. Investing 10 degrees of electricity only results in an output of 1 degree of electricity, a net loss of 9 degrees of electricity, which is obviously not acceptable. It can be seen that one of the technical bottlenecks of controlled nuclear fusion is resistance, and the most effective way to reduce resistance is undoubtedly superconductivity. To achieve superconductivity, it is generally only possible to rely on ultra-low temperature environments. Now that AVIC Linfa E has developed room temperature superconducting materials, it means that there is no need to set up additional cooling equipment to create ultra-low temperature environments. Furthermore, the major breakthrough in the materials industry has greatly reduced the difficulty of controlled nuclear fusion. In the afternoon, not long after Xiao Yu arrived at Avic Linfei, the company's current CEO Chen Ziking learned that he was here and came to Xiao Yu's office. This morning, 6 or 7 scientific research units including the Institute of Plasma Physics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the Institute of Nuclear Physics, and the Institute of Technology of the University of Science and Technology of China came to inquire about and investigate room temperature superconducting materials. Chen Ziking reported this to Xiao Yu. The scientific research units he mentioned all have project research in the field of controlled nuclear fusion. There are many institutions in China that study controlled nuclear fusion, and there are already more than a dozen, including some private institutions. Chen Ziking looked at Xiao Yu and added, "These units are asking when they can provide room temperature superconducting materials. When I received them, I could see that they were very excited and eager to get the goods." Hearing this, Xiao Yu immediately said, "We have made the materials, but we have no say in who to supply them to. Let them find their own competent units and apply to their superiors. We only recognize the stamped approval documents of our superiors. Without the approval documents, no matter how much money you pay, you can't sell a gram." Chen Ziking nodded, "I understand. The current reported production capacity is more than 500 tons. It has been confirmed that there will be a quota for the direction of controlled nuclear fusion, and this material can be used first. However, the allocated output will not be much. More than a dozen units want to obtain this material to support their controlled nuclear fusion research. At most 2 units can really get the goods. This must be strictly screened. First of all, some units that have joint research with foreign countries will definitely be excluded. But this is not what Xiao Yu cares about. He doesn't have that much energy. He only recognizes the stamped approval documents of relevant national departments. If there are approval documents and money in place, then supply the goods. If not, then don't give them. This saves worry and trouble." After a while, Xiao Yu skipped this matter and said, "Don't fall behind in the construction efficiency of the new headquarters in Dongcheng district. In addition, the construction of the smart factory for producing room temperature superconducting materials must be promoted immediately." Chen Ziking nodded again, "Everything is progressing according to the expected plan. There is no problem in completing it on time." After talking for a while, Chen Ziking also left. Xiao Yu left these things to him to deal with. It is impossible for him to do everything himself. Chapter 130, Problem of Insufficient Aircraft Battery Energy. Xiao Yu estimated that even with the support of room temperature superconducting materials, the possibility of breakthroughs in the next 10 years for those domestic institutions engaged in controlled nuclear fusion technology research was not high, but Xiao Yu would not wait for them too long. If they could not figure it out, Xiao Yu could light up the technology tree of controlled nuclear fusion technology by himself. The Blue Star world had already realized miniaturized applications and was even working on antimatter energy. Not long after Chen Ziking left, Xiao Yu also left his office and came to the company's aircraft design and development department. At this moment, the R&D and design team in the department was discussing many design issues of all-electric drive aircraft. Seeing the boss coming, everyone stopped speaking. For Xiao Yu, everyone present was convinced. They already knew that so many people in the basic application research department next door were working on room temperature superconducting materials. In the end, it was the boss who continued to work alone in the laboratory during the long holiday of the National Day holiday, and he really made it. Graphene material mass production technology, artificial intelligence, room temperature superconducting materials, any of these achievements are world-renowned, and you can't refuse to accept it. Obviously, Xiao Yu's self-created super-genius personality that is rare in a century has already taken shape in the eyes of others. In the future, he will have to get other black technologies from the Blue Star world, and this personality is indispensable. People have to admit that there are indeed such fierce people in this world, such as Jin Lao, an old-generation scientist of the 2 bombs and 1 satellite, who can create a discipline with just 1 page of paper. At that time, national scientific research was in its infancy, and gyroscope technology was almost blank, and researchers were helpless. So they asked Jin Lao to study this technology, but he didn't have so much time, so he wrote the theoretical essence of laser gyroscope technology on 1 page of paper and handed it over to the research institute. Others relied on Jin Lao's 1 page of paper to establish and develop the entire theoretical and technical system, which is almost a complete discipline. This page of paper has also become the cornerstone of domestic gyroscope technology, and has opened the starting point of technological leap from scratch. With Jin Lao's pearls and jade in front, outsiders can accept Xiao Yu's amazing achievements at such a young age. How is the argument going? Xiao Yu found a seat and sat down directly. The man sitting next to him, Zhang Heng, was the project leader. He looked at Xiao Yu and said, "We have introduced room temperature superconducting materials and verified that insufficient energy is still the biggest technical pain point of all electric drive." Another researcher immediately spoke up. The various commercial drones and test aircraft now belong to small aircraft. Strictly speaking, large aircraft that can be fully electrically propelled, such as civil airliners, have never appeared. Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Now we are mainly engaged in military aircraft, but we will definitely enter the civil aviation field in the future. The number of civil airliners in the world has reached 30,000. This is a market of trillions of dollars. We, avec l'intérêt, must have a share of it," Zhang Heng said. For the full electric drive of large aircraft, the biggest problem we are facing now is the weight of the battery. From the current point of view, the energy output per unit mass of aviation fuel is about 50 times that of traditional batteries. If you want to drive a large aircraft, such as a civil airliner, you have to remove all the seats and cargo holds to install batteries. According to our latest demonstration and calculations, graphene batteries can shorten the energy gap to within 10 times. The introduction of room temperature superconducting materials can shorten the gap to about 2 times, but it still cannot match the energy storage rate of traditional aviation fuel, the researcher just now said. Assuming that the thrust generated by the engine remains unchanged, the thrust-to-weight ratio relying on fuel will increase as the remaining fuel decreases. In other words, it will become more and more fuel efficient while keeping the speed unchanged, but the mass of the batteries carried by all electric aircraft is unchanged, and the thrust-to-weight ratio has remained unchanged. If we want to make up for the last 2 times gap, we must divide the batteries into several blocks and directly airdrop the batteries that have run out of power. But this one-time consumption is definitely unbearable. Xiao Yu required an all-electric aircraft and a hypersonic jet. The high-temperature combustion gas at the tail needs to be heated by electrical output, and high-energy electric arc heating is used, which is very power-consuming. The application of graphene batteries is still in its early stages, and its energy density may not have reached the theoretical peak limit. Let's start with the innovation of key processes and technologies. As long as the battery energy density is further increased, this problem will not be a problem. Xiao Yu looked around and said to everyone. Everyone? Oh, that's true, but it's not that easy. Isn't this nonsense? The breakthrough of graphene batteries is already an amazing leap. If the energy density can be doubled on the existing basis, the energy storage gap with traditional aviation fuel can be shortened from 10 times to 5 times as demonstrated now. If room temperature superconducting materials are introduced, it can be equal. At this moment, while Xiao Yu was communicating and discussing with the project development team, he was also thinking in his heart that he was definitely not worried. The graphene battery technology in the Blue Star world has already reached the theoretical peak. If it doesn't work, the technology can be moved from the Blue Star. Moreover, the backward products that have been eliminated now, the mainstream products in the Blue Star world are ultra-high energy density batteries with more powerful energy storage, which is more than 100 times the energy density of graphene batteries. Everything depends on human effort. We have even developed room temperature superconducting materials. Nothing is impossible. Just do it first. I will work on the battery. The other modules will proceed as planned. Xiao Yu looked around at Zhang Heng and others with a smile. Seeing the boss's confident side, everyone was also quite encouraged for a while. The current breakthrough in graphene battery technology was originally played by the boss. The core role played by the boss. Xiao Yu stayed for half an hour and then left the company and went directly back to the villa. Underground warehouse laboratory. Xiao Yu opened the teleportation stargate and came to the bedroom of the private villa in Fenquin City in the Blue Star world again. Walking out of the house and coming to the living room of the villa, Xiao Yu immediately instructed the housekeeper robot number 18, "Please organize a complete and systematic graphene battery technology data for me. If there's any technical data that needs to be purchased, you can spend money directly." It can be said that it is easy to obtain graphene battery technology in the Blue Star world, because it is already an outdated technology product here. Just like the current smartphones on Earth have replaced the big brothers. On the Blue Star world, Graphene battery technology has long passed the confidentiality period and has become part of the Blue Star Human Science and Technology Civilization Development History data, and is publicly accessible technical literature, most of which can be found on the Blue Star Internet. With the assistance of Robot Beauty number 18, Xiao Yu does not need to spend energy to search by herself. She only needs a few seconds to efficiently complete the packaging and sorting of data documents. For some technical documents that require payment to obtain, Robot Beauty number 18 can pay directly for the purchase. Xiao Yu has an additional fund account that is directly authorized to be entrusted to her. Solving the problem of the upper limit of the energy density of aircraft graphene batteries may take other Earthlings several years or even 10 years to study without any breakthroughs, but it is so simple and direct for Xiao Yu, just take it and it's done. After a while, Robot Beauty number 18 looked at Xiao Yu. Master, the data and documents of graphene battery technology have been collected and sorted and uploaded to your private server. You can check it at any time. Xiao Yu was very satisfied when he heard this. Isn't this solved at the speed of light? When he returns to Earth, he will download the technical documents and take them away. P.S. I never expected that the 6th generation aircraft would be tested so suddenly, and there were 2 of them in one flight, and they flew on that special day. Suddenly I felt that the novel was too conservative, and it must be a little bigger. Chapter 131, Direct Showdown. Xiao Yu did not come to the Blue Star world this time to light up the graphene battery technology. This was just a side thing. The main purpose of this time was to come for the N800 nano armament, an organic body. Now it can be confirmed that the N800 nano armament, a black technology, is also in the hands of the Blue Star Red Tide organization. Linen defected from the Heavenly Kingdom to join the Red Tide organization and took away many of the Heavenly Kingdom's top secret high-tech. It is unknown whether the Red Tide organization has also mastered the organic body black technology. In the following days, Xiao Yu stayed in his private villa and did not go anywhere. With the help of the housekeeper number 18 Robot Beauty to sort out information, Xiao Yu began to have a deep understanding of the situation of the Red Tide organization, especially the latest developments. Try to understand the current situation of this organization from all aspects. This move is to understand what the Red Tide organization is currently lacking or urgently needs. Only by figuring out this problem first, at least have a general estimate, can you confirm whether you have the chips to exchange with it. While doing this, Xiao Yu also adjusted the time difference and adapted to a sunlight cycle in the Blue Star world. Unknowingly, 10 Blue Star days have passed. Xiao Yu gained a deeper understanding of the Red Tide organization based on the information he could access. This process was also quite laborious, because the information he could see was limited, basically obtained from the Blue Star Internet, which required screening and analysis, and at the same time required Xiao Yu himself to have sufficient discernment and judgment, because a lot of information must be distorted by the Kingdom of Heaven. However, there is a saying that war reports can lie, but the battle lines are difficult to lie. After screening and analyzing many of the latest information, Xiao Yu also came to his own preliminary judgment that the Kingdom of Heaven has a great advantage over the Red Tide organization, and the latter is basically in a passive defensive state. The current situation of the Red Tide organization is indeed not optimistic. And Xiao Yu discovered a key problem from it. He can basically determine that the current Red Tide organization has ideals and passion, but cannot form a global chess game. More importantly, they do not have a complete set of guiding line ideas for this revolutionary war. It seems that the Red Tide organization is not only in short supply of food supplies, weapons and equipment, but also the guidance of a set of 5 volumes of dragon-slaying treasure book, Xiao Yu thought to himself. After so many days of understanding the Red Tide organization, although the information was limited, Xiao Yu felt that if the organization did not achieve a transformation similar to the 3W's adaptation, did not form a chess game, and had no strategic guidance, it would most likely fail in its business and fail to win the final victory with its passion and ideals. In the end, Xiao Yu was very confident in exchanging N800 nano weapons from the Red Tide organization. If the top leaders of the organization can see gold, they must understand what the 5 volumes of dragon-slaying treasure book mean to them. If the Red Tide organization does not realize its value, then the organization is likely to fail in its business. If the Red Tide organization cannot see the value of the 5 volumes of dragon-slaying treasure book, Xiao Yu still has another heavyweight bargaining chip in his hand, that is, food crops, fruits and vegetables that are not reproductively isolated and have the ability to reproduce, including providing a large amount of ready-made food supplies. Xiao Yu determined the general idea, and continued to stay in seclusion in his residence for the next period of time. He decided to sort out part of the dragon slaying book first, and then find the Red Tide organization to exchange N-800 nano-weapons and other black technology. The decision to exchange the dragon slaying book first was because it was relatively easy for Xiao Yu. With so much food and materials, the Earth still needed to make corresponding arrangements. But the dragon slaying book didn't need to be so troublesome. As long as Xiao Yu spent some time to compile it for blue star localization, remove some of the elements of the Earth, and rewrite it in combination with the local conditions of the blue star world, but the core of the thought was the same. In a moment, almost half a blue star month had passed. Well, it's almost done. Let's compile this much first. Xiao Yu looked at the new panel in front of him. During this period, he only did this one thing, localizing the 5 volumes of the dragon slaying book on blue star, of course, in electronic form. During this period, Xiao Yu occasionally went to the Blue Star Prism Company to symbolically do some work, and then transported some starch from the Earth to give the company employees here something to do. Xiao Yu only completed a part of the dragon slaying book, which could be directly handed over to the people of the Red Tide organization. But if they wanted the complete version, they would have to exchange it for black technology such as the N-800 nano-weapon. Moreover, Xiao Yu did not want the finished product, but the complete technology. Xiao Yu would never dare to take the finished N-800 nano-weapon. The intelligence of this thing is definitely quite high, and the nanoparticles flow directly in the blood circulation system in the body and are ready to be activated at any time. In case there is a backdoor mechanism, others can control it remotely, which is equivalent to handing over your life and death to others. Even if there is no actual situation, Xiao Yu would never dare to take the risk of betting on the kindness of others. It is necessary to be on guard against others. Xiao Yu would never dare to take the finished product, let alone put it into his body. It is necessary to obtain the complete technology and then produce it by himself. Only in this way can we rest assured without any worries. Moreover, with a complete technology, the problem of replenishing nanoparticles will be solved in the future. This thing must be consumable and needs to be replenished. If you can't make it yourself, you have to find the Red Tide organization to provide it, which means you are at the mercy of others. All the preparations have been arranged in place. The next focus is how to achieve the first contact with the Red Tide organization. Boss Xiao, what do you want? A holographic display panel appeared in front of Xiao Yu. The screen was Yan Lingjun, the beautiful assistant. After the video connection was successful, Xiao Yu said directly, "Please put down your work for the time being and come to my house now." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun didn't know what he was going to do, and immediately nodded and replied, "Okay, I'll be there right away." The short conversation ended the communication. Xiao Yu turned off the holographic video panel and sat in the living room of the villa residence, waiting for her to come. He had long suspected that Yan Lingjun's identity was related to the Red Tide organization. Xiao Yu planned to show his cards directly in a while, and he was too lazy to waste time trying to talk to her. There must be a clear result today. If Yan Lingjun didn't admit it, Xiao Yu didn't bother to waste time on her, and directly assumed that she would report to the Heavenly Kingdom after the showdown, and Xiao Yu would directly leave Fenquin City, leave the sphere of influence of the central continent Heavenly Kingdom, and redevelop in other continents. It doesn't matter if the Prism Company in Fenquin City is thrown away, anyway, the money is in his own anonymous financial account, and then find another way to contact the Red Tide organization. Xiao Yu can only do this now, because he has no foundation in the Blue Star world, unless he runs directly to the occupied area of the Red Tide organization, but that must pass through the war zone, which is much more risky than directly confronting Yan Lingjun. After waiting for about 20 minutes, Yan Lingjun came from the company to Xiao Yu's private villa. I saw the housekeeper robot beauty number 18 open the door, and then led Yan Lingjun to the living room of the villa. Xiao Yu, who was sitting here, told the housekeeper robot beauty to go to another room to wait. There were only 2 people in the living room. Xiao Yu glanced at the beautiful assistant and smiled. "Sit down." Yan Lingjun sat down on the sofa opposite him and looked up at Xiao Yu and asked, "What do you want to talk to me about?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu did not answer immediately. He only called up a holographic panel, pushed it in front of Yan Lingjun, looked at him and smiled. "Take a look at these contents first." Chapter 132, Exposed. or fraud. Xiao Yu retracted his gaze, stood up and went to get 2 cups, then added while pouring water, "I wrote the article, but the content came from one of my mentors. He is not mobile, so I wrote it for him." Hearing this, Yan Lingjin's eyes flashed with some confusion, and at the same time he was a little curious, so he retracted his gaze and focused on the article in the holographic display panel in front of him. Obviously, the article Xiao Yu gave Yan Lingjin was the content of the 5 volumes, The Theory of Contradiction, and The Theory of Practice that he excerpted and adapted for localization after further deepening his understanding of the Red Tide organization of Blue Star during this period. Although the situation in the world of Blue Star is very different from that on Earth, the thinking of great people is interoperable, and the foundation of thinking is the same. It is to enable a person to complete the upgrade and transformation of the palace of self-thinking, know what to focus on when doing something, and be able to judge the laws of the development of things. Since it is a career, these processes cannot be bypassed. The development of society is changing all the time, but the logic behind getting something done is stable, because things need to be done by people, and human nature evolves much slower than society. It is true that the level of scientific and technological productivity in the Blue Star world is much faster than that of the Earth world, but it is only fast at the technical level. The transformation and upgrading at the human level may not be much faster than the human civilization on Earth, and it may even be worse than the human civilization on Earth. Otherwise, the central continent kingdom in the Blue Star world should not have existed until now. However, Xiao Yu did not copy it completely rigidly, because the situation faced by the Blue Star world was different after all. Xiao Yu started by looking for some commonalities between the two. What happened in his hometown on Earth happened to be encountered in the Blue Star world. The correct solution has not been found here, and those precious books have already solved it, so they can be taken out, which is equivalent to saving the Blue Star world from taking a lot of detours. At this moment, Yan Lingjin has already started reading. There are several excerpts in the display panel, totaling about 40,000 to 50,000 words, which is not much, because Xiao Yu does not know much about the Blue Star world and the Red Tide organization. Without going to the scene to conduct in-depth research and analyze specific issues, Xiao Yu did not dare to write rashly, otherwise it is very likely that he would end up drawing a tiger but end up drawing a dog, and some of the content is not completely applicable to the actual situation in the Blue Star world. Without investigation, there is no right to speak. The tens of thousands of words written now are the result of Xiao Yu's current understanding of the Blue Star world and the Red Tide organization at this stage. There can be no more, otherwise it will exceed the limitations of cognition and will inevitably lead to wrong guidance. There must be enough understanding and specific analysis of specific issues. The beginning of the article takes the Battle of Peking as the entry point. This was a battle between the Red Tide Revolutionary Army and the regular army of the Kingdom of Heaven 5 years ago, in the place of Peking. The Red Tide Revolutionary Army tried to capture the city. As a result, it was defeated by the army of the Kingdom of Heaven, and the Red Tide Revolutionary Army suffered heavy losses and was seriously injured. Xiao Yu used this as the entry point because the information of the Battle of Peking was complete and public enough, and it had been collected, selected and compared with multiple documents to ensure the objectivity of the information obtained. For this battle, the core reason for the Red Tide Revolutionary Army's disastrous defeat was a serious strategic misjudgment. At this moment, Yan Lingjin browsed the content of the article without saying a word. The commander's correct deployment comes from the correct determination, the correct determination comes from the correct judgment, and the correct judgment comes from careful and necessary reconnaissance, as well as the coherent thinking and analysis of various reconnaissance materials. The commander uses all possible and necessary reconnaissance means to analyze the various materials of the enemy's situation obtained through reconnaissance, and then adds his own situation to study the comparison and mutual relationship between the two sides, thus forming a judgment, making a decision, and making a plan. This is a normal process of understanding the situation before the commander makes each strategy, campaign or battle plan. Always go to the scene to investigate and analyze specific issues. Wars must always be settled, not just for the sake of fighting, and always be a chess game of the overall situation. In the retreat stage, you must calculate the counterattack stage. In the counterattack stage, you must calculate the offensive stage, and in the offensive stage, you must calculate the retreat stage. Without this calculation, being bound by the interests in front of you is the way to failure. The guiding principle of all military actions must be based on a most basic principle, which is, Preserve your own strength as much as possible and destroy the enemy's strength. Yan Lingjun was not very touched by the opening content of the article, but she felt that it made sense. This was because she was not a commander who led troops to fight. However, as she read deeper and read the contents of the other excerpts later, she became more and more involved, as if she had forgotten the time. Many contents in the article benefited her a lot. For example, one of the excerpts about practice almost pointed out the fastest path for a person to improve, and it was simply teaching people how to become stronger. Many people often say a sentence when they cannot bravely accept work tasks: I am not sure. Why am I not sure? Because he has no regular understanding of the content and environment of this work, or he has never been exposed to this kind of work, or has not been exposed to much, so there is no way to talk about the rules of this kind of work. After a detailed analysis of the situation and environment of the work, he felt relatively sure and was willing to do this work. If this person has been doing this work for a period of time and has experience in this work, and he is a person who is willing to observe the situation with an open mind, and not a person who looks at problems subjectively, one-sidedly, and superficially, he will be able to draw his own conclusions on how to do the work, and his courage to work will be greatly improved. After a long time, Yan Lingjun finished reading the tens of thousands of words on the display panel. Although the overall length is not long, many of the contents seem to have opened the door to a new world after reading them. From time to time, she felt suddenly enlightened, which greatly broadened her thinking level and realm. In a sense, Yan Lingjun did open the door to a new world because of this, and Xiao Yu was actually the first human civilization in the Blue Star world to export these great ideas. The contents that Yan Lingjun saw were precious treasures from another world. The contents compiled by Xiao Yu, whether selected from the 5 volumes, or the theory of contradictions and the theory of practice, are all priceless spiritual treasures left by great men to the descendants of China. Finally, Yan Lingjun looked up at Xiao Yu and couldn't help but say, I really want to meet your mentor. He must be a very remarkable person. Xiao Yu didn't comment and looked at him. He suddenly smiled and asked, shouldn't you ask me why I showed this to you first? Yan Lingjun was stunned when he said this. Xiao Yu saw her like this, and didn't care whether she was pretending to be stunned or not, and said directly, I show you these so that you can copy them and give them to the Red Tide organization. This may help your current career. When Yan Lingjun heard Xiao Yu say this, her heart trembled suddenly. Fortunately, her slightly dazed state concealed the sudden and intense unrest in her heart. However, her psychological quality is indeed different from that of ordinary people. She quickly calmed herself down from the extremely abrupt shock and thought to herself, exposed? Or is he deceiving me? The next moment, Yan Lingjun suddenly showed a look of shock and horror. Mr. Xiao, what do you mean by this? Xiao Yu seemed to have spied on Yan Lingjun's thoughts, and he said calmly, do you think I am deceiving you? It doesn't matter. In fact, I have long suspected that you are a spy of the Red Tide. Of course, I don't have enough evidence, and it doesn't matter. Xiao Yu continued, the important thing is that whether you believe it or not, I can't play with the elites of the Kingdom of Heaven, let alone a spy of the Kingdom of Heaven. I have already booked the ticket to leave the Kingdom of Heaven in advance. If you are not a Red Tide spy, or I can't determine it, it means that it is very dangerous for me to continue to stay in the territory of the Kingdom of Heaven. So, I hope that our communication next can be open and frank. Obviously, Xiao Yu also made a plan for the worst. If this direct showdown did not meet his expectations, he really planned to leave the Kingdom of Heaven today. The ticket was indeed booked by robot number 18, and it was booked while waiting for Yan Lingjun to come. Xiao Yu wanted to leave, and no one in the Kingdom of Heaven could keep him. If he could leave smoothly via the flight, he could just take a normal flight. But if Yan Lingjun was not a Red Tide spy, he had to predict that she might report him to the Heavenly Kingdom after the conversation. If the Heavenly Kingdom sent someone to intercept him at the airport, Xiao Yu would just use the transmission star ring to escape. This was why he dared to be so direct. Chapter 133, Speaking Frankly. Xiao Yu spent so much energy on these articles. One of the important purposes was to solve the trust problem when contacting the Red Tide organization. It was crucial to break the chain of suspicion between the two sides. Xiao Yu did not dare to use the N-800 nano-weapons directly provided by the other party. This was a trust problem. Similarly, why did the Red Tide organization trust you? One of the main functions of these articles is to explain that Xiao Yu's values will not stand on the position of the Kingdom of Heaven. His values are naturally opposed to it. Otherwise, these articles would never appear, and Xiao Yu's position was determined, which is obviously very important for the Red Tide organization. In addition to these, Xiao Yu's other hidden intention is to do an experiment on Blue Star. By helping the Red Tide organization to succeed in entrepreneurship, we can see whether the Blue Star world with such developed scientific and technological productivity and abundant materials can achieve the ultimate goal of upgrading from each according to his ability, to each according to his work at the beginning, to from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Obviously, this is an excellent experimental opportunity. With this model reference, it will undoubtedly save a lot of detours on the Earth side. At least Xiao Yu can see the truth after being tested in practice. At this moment, Yan Lingjun immediately said very seriously, "Boss Xiao, please don't make such jokes, it's not funny at all." Xiao Yu stared at the beautiful assistant in front of him, and looked into her eyes and said, "Do you think I'm joking with you?" Hearing this, Yan Lingjun replied, "Then I'm sorry to tell you that I'm not a spy member of the Red Tide organization. You may have found the wrong person. If she could reveal her identity so easily, she would have been finished long ago. It is impossible for her to foolishly confess based on Xiao Yu's one-sided words." Xiao Yu actually understood this very well, and was not surprised at all. However, Yan Lingjun's heart was very uneasy at the moment. Seeing that she was so denying and unwilling to show her hand, Xiao Yu said to himself, "If I found the wrong person, it would be a huge loss for the Red Tide. I can provide them with a steady supply of food supplies, not only synthetic starch, but also various fruits, vegetables and fresh meat with breeding ability." After this period of understanding, Xiao Yu has determined that the large amount of high-tech heavenly kingdom that Lin and took away when he defected does not include food, because this part is in the hands of another big family, not the Lin family. Hearing Xiao Yu's words, Yan Lingjun's heart fluctuated violently again, and at the same time, he was quickly weighing whether to take the risk of showing his hand to him. But what if the man in front of him is really a spy of the heavenly kingdom, and he is throwing such a big bait to fish now? If he shows his hand to him and admits his identity as a spy, it is self-evident what the outcome will be. Reason tells her that she can't show her hand, and she must bite her death and deny it. But the question is, what if what Xiao Yu said is true? It can provide the food supplies that the Red Tide organization is in urgent need of now, and even provide plants, fruits, vegetables, fresh meat and other supplies with breeding ability. If she refused to admit it now, it would be a huge loss for the Red Tide organization, as it said. At last, Yan Lingjun sighed. She had already made a decision in her heart, which was to take a gamble and be mentally prepared for the worst result, sacrificing herself for a certainty. If she was wrong, at most she would die alone, but if she was right, it would benefit the revolutionary cause of the Red Tide organization infinitely. Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu again, and she suddenly told him frankly, "Your guess is correct. I am indeed a member of the Red Tide, and the task I received from my superiors is to get close to you and find new channels for the organization to obtain food and supplies." After these words came out, Xiao Yu was quite surprised. He looked at him and said with slight surprise, "I am surprised. Why did you suddenly admit it so frankly? As a spy, you have committed a taboo, and it is even very irrational." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun stared at Xiao Yu. "I have thought of many possibilities, but the bait you threw out is too big. I may be able to save my life by not admitting it. If what you said is true, in order to save my own life, my caution caused the organization to miss such a great strategic opportunity." After a moment of silence, Yan Lingjun couldn't help but smile and said, "Comparatively speaking, I am willing to gamble my life for this. If I am wrong, it is nothing more than my life. If I am right, it is a huge strategic opportunity for the organization. For the organization, this is a small risk for a big gain, a small loss for a big gain." Hearing this, Xiao Yu could not help but be secretly moved. This woman's spirit of sacrifice was indeed eye-catching. This was a decision that required great courage to make. Xiao Yu said concisely, "Great." However, Xiao Yu did not believe all of what Yan Lingjun said. Because it was not ruled out that she was just trying to delay the attack, and as soon as she got away, she would turn around and go to the people in heaven to expose it. Although the probability of this was very, very low, but in the case of not being 100% confirmed, Xiao Yu also kept an eye on it. It is better to be safe than sorry. After a while, Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu again and asked proactively, "I don't understand why you do this? Since you have spoken frankly, I want to know what your purpose is." Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Of course, to start some cooperation with Red Tide. Yan Lingjun looked at him with confusion. Cooperation? Xiao Yu picked up the cup and took a sip, then said slowly, I want to obtain the complete technology of N-800 nano-weapons and organic bodies from the Red Tide organization. In exchange, I can provide you with a steady supply of the food and materials you need, and in large quantities. Hearing this, Yan Lingjun was surprised again, and couldn't help but say, what I don't understand is that since President Xiao has such a powerful ability, it shouldn't be difficult to obtain N-800 nano-weapons and organic bodies, right? Why do we need to get it from the Red Tide organization? She was indeed very confused about this. Since they could provide such a huge amount of food and materials, and the key was that they could even provide plants, fruits and vegetables with the ability to reproduce. This was definitely not something that ordinary people could do. It must be an existence that could access the top of the Heavenly Kingdom pyramid. At this moment, Xiao Yu was delighted. Because he had obtained a key piece of information from Yan Lingjun's words just now, that the Red Tide organization had also mastered the organic body. Yan Lingjun could not read any valuable information from Xiao Yu's expression, because his expression management was also super in place. Xiao Yu did not answer directly, but smiled and looked at the beautiful assistant and added, you may not believe it, but I am actually very happy to see that you can successfully replace the Kingdom of Heaven. I also want to see if you can create the ideal country in your hearts after you have conquered the world, or if it is just a new reincarnation, and the Dragon Slayer becomes a new evil dragon. Yan Lingjun remained silent. She found that the man in front of her was too mysterious and she could not see through him at all. She felt that Xiao Yu was indeed not interested in the Kingdom of Heaven, but she could not be completely sure. After a moment, Yan Lingjun said, I need to report to my superiors. Xiao Yu nodded, of course. No problem, but I can't confirm your identity. Yan Lingjun couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. Boss Xiao, you are really cautious. So, how can we solve the trust problem? Xiao Yu also smiled and said, I can only wrong you for a few hours. I will go abroad. You can be free again in a few hours. If you are really a member of the Red Tide, go and report, and then contact me. We can talk outside the control of the Kingdom of Heaven. How about it? Chapter 134, Progress. Hearing Xiao Yu's plan, Yan Lingjun immediately said, how can I believe that what you said is true? What if you are a spy of the Kingdom of Heaven and use this as an excuse to call people to arrest me? Xiao Yu immediately smiled and asked back, didn't you say that you would win this strategic opportunity for your organization by risking a small amount? You have already risked your life, why do you have to ask such a question? This made Yan Lingjun speechless for a while. It was true. From the moment he admitted it, there was no way back. In fact, when she heard Xiao Yu propose to leave the Kingdom of Heaven's sphere of influence for further negotiations, Yan Lingjun knew that the probability of her betting right this time was more than 90%, otherwise Xiao Yu would not have proposed such a plan. His caution just showed that it was true. After a moment, Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu with a smile on his face, now that things have come to this, there is no other way. Just tie me up. Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled and said, it doesn't have to be tied up. Come with me. After Xiao Yu finished speaking, he immediately stood up and walked towards a room in the villa. Yan Lingjun also stood up and followed him. After a while, Xiao Yu stood at the door of the house and glanced at Yan Lingjun. I'll have to temporarily lock you up in this room for a few hours. When the time is up, I will unlock your door and you can then be free and leave on your own. Yan Lingjun also entered the room decisively. She took off the holographic bracelet on her wrist and handed it to Xiao Yu, looking at him and smiling. Do you want a body search? Xiao Yu said calmly. Of course. Yan Lingjun said, search. After that, he waited for him to come forward for a body search. Xiao Yu said concisely, I'm sorry. Xiao Yu just took a few steps forward to approach Yan Lingjun, and suddenly stepped back. This made the beautiful assistant look at him in confusion. Xiao Yu called the housekeeper Robot Beauty number 18 and asked her to search Yan Lingjun. Yan Lingjun, who was being searched by the Robot Beauty, couldn't help but smile and said, what? Are you afraid that I will make a surprise attack on you? After confirming that the probability of her bet being right was more than 90%, Yan Lingjun was not as serious and nervous as before. Instead, she joked with him and the atmosphere became much more relaxed. In fact, she was also trying to relieve the previous nervousness. However, Yan Lingjun guessed it right. Xiao Yu was indeed worried that if he searched her at close range by himself, she might suddenly counterattack. Agents and spies might be very capable. What if this woman is very powerful? If she fails, he will not be able to cry. Although she guessed it right, Xiao Yu certainly could not admit it. He immediately said calmly, "You think too much? I just don't want you to think that I took advantage of you. That's all." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun smiled slightly and said nothing more. After a while, the housekeeper robot beauty number 18 searched Yan Lingjun's body and finally confirmed that except for the holographic bracelet, she had no other wireless communication tools to contact the outside world. Xiao Yu handed her a note and said, "This is my contact information. If you don't contact me within 5 days, I will assume that you are not a spy of the Red Tide. You can find another job. I will directly choose to bankrupt Prism Company." Yan Lingjun took the contact information he handed over, took a look and nodded immediately. "Well, I understand." After the matter was explained, Xiao Yu no longer hesitated. After closing and locking the door, he took the robot beauty number 18 to leave the villa, and then took an outbound flight to leave the Kingdom of Heaven and fly directly to Yan's house. With Xiao Yu's departure, Yan Lingjun stayed alone in this room, and her heart became uneasy again, because the next few hours would be the moment to decide her fate. On the other side, Xiao Yu arrived in a country in Yan's house 6 hours later and checked into a local city hotel. In the next few days, Xiao Yu's plan is to wait for news from Yan Lingjun, and at the same time, he will also go around the Blue Star world, personally investigate the customs and habits of this world, and at the same time light up more coordinates to facilitate the entry and exit of the Star Ring in the Blue Star world in the future. At this moment, it is afternoon local time. Xiao Yu entered the hotel room, sat down in the living room and said to the housekeeper robot beauty, "How is Yan Lingjun?" The housekeeper robot beauty called up a holographic screen panel and enlarged it proportionally. Xiao Yu immediately looked at the holographic panel, and the screen was the real-time monitoring screen of the room where Yan Lingjun was. At this moment, Yan Lingjun stayed quietly in the room and did nothing, and she could not do anything. She also knew that she was being monitored by Xiao Yu the whole time. After a while, Xiao Yu said, "Open the door and let her out. The door locks and the villa can be remotely controlled, which is very convenient." The housekeeper robot beauty immediately responded, "Okay, master." At the same time, Yan Lingjun, who was staying in the room, was closing his eyes and resting quietly without saying a word. At this moment, she suddenly opened her eyes because she heard the sound of unlocking the door. She immediately looked in the direction of the sound and saw that the tightly closed door slowly opened a crack. The door lock was unlocked. Seeing this scene, Yan Lingjun quickly stood up and went to the door and opened it directly. She was secretly delighted. After walking out of the house and coming to the living room, until she successfully left Xiao Yu's private villa, there was no scene of people from the Heavenly Kingdom Secret Service Agency coming to arrest her as expected. Yan Lingjun finally couldn't stop her excitement. She felt that she had survived a disaster, and she also confirmed that she had really made the right bet this time. He is not a Heavenly Kingdom spy. After a long time, Yan Lingjun calmed down her excitement and hurriedly set off to send this information out. She also knew very well that if she could reach a cooperation with Xiao Yu and obtain a steady supply of food and materials, it would be of great help to the revolutionary cause. Time passed day by day. After only 3 days, Yan Lingjun contacted Xiao Yu according to the contact information Xiao Yu gave her. On the morning of the 3rd day, the beautiful robot housekeeper came to Xiao Yu and said, "Master, Ms. Yan Lingjun has sent you an encrypted video call." Xiao Yu, who was having dinner at the hotel, couldn't help but be slightly refreshed when he heard this, and immediately said, "Take it." After a while, a holographic panel appeared in front of Xiao Yu, and Yan Lingjun appeared in the video screen. She suddenly showed a charming smile and said, "Mr. Xiao, you should have no questions now, right?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled and immediately said, "What do you mean?" Yan Lingjun replied, "The organization attaches great importance to this matter and has arranged important people. I hope to meet with you to discuss cooperation in detail." Xiao Yu said straightforwardly, "Reply to your superior, I will not meet anyone else if they send someone else. If I want to talk in person, I will only meet you, and I will only see you within 3 days. Yan Lingjun was surprised and puzzled when he heard this, and immediately said, "I'm afraid my level is not enough." Xiao Yu replied calmly, "There is no way, this point cannot be discussed or bargained. I will only meet you. This is a major premise for the 2 parties to reach a possible cooperation. If your organization has enough sincerity for cooperation, The so-called insufficient level is not a problem at all. This time, Xiao Yu was so persistent in asking Yan Lingjin to represent the Red Tide organization to negotiate because he did not trust others. What if it was someone else? What if this person had an organic body? What if this person was armed with N800 nano weapons? So he could only meet Yan Lingjin, and the time could not be too long. If the time was too long, it was not ruled out that the Yan Lingjin sent to negotiate was an incarnation that was exactly the same as her, not Yan Lingjin herself. If they met in a short period of time, it would definitely be too late to create an incarnation, which ruled out the possibility that Yan Lingjin was an incarnation. Moreover, even if he met Yan Lingjin, Xiao Yu was still worried. He had to do a blood test before meeting her to confirm that she was not carrying N800 nano weapons before meeting her. Only in this way could Xiao Yu be completely relieved. Because the N800 nano weapon is too amazing in the eyes of an earthling like him. With this thing in his body, a weakling can instantly have a terrifying combat power comparable to the Hulk and Iron Man. What if the Red Tide organization secretly equipped Yan Lingjin with N800 nano weapons? What if this black technology also has remote control capabilities? If you were to face him, and the other party was not friendly, in the face of such an absolute force, Xiao Yu might not even have time to open the teleportation stargate before being taken down by the other party at the speed of light, and he would not have time to react at all. Even if this possibility is extremely low, as long as the probability of this possibility is not zero, Xiao Yu must not take risks to gamble, and must not have a fluke mentality. He must ensure that it is absolutely foolproof before he can have a meeting. But at this moment, Yan Lingjin on the other side of the video saw that Xiao Yu had a completely unnegotiable attitude, so he had to reply, "Okay, I'll report again." Xiao Yu nodded, "Remember, there are only 3 days, and there will be no waiting if you exceed the time limit." Chapter 135, The Extremely Steady Xiao Yu. The two sides ended the encrypted call. Xiao Yu thought for a moment, then looked at the beautiful housekeeper robot number 18 and asked, "Regarding N800 nanoparticles, can you test this type of nanoparticles in the blood?" Xiao Yu remembered that this model of bionic robot also has the ability to diagnose medical problems. The beautiful robot immediately responded, "Master, my hardware foundation is not enough to support the detection of such a fine microstructure, but there are professional testing equipment that can do it. You only need to draw blood for testing, and the results will be available within 5 minutes." Hearing this, Xiao Yu immediately asked, "Where can I buy this equipment?" The beautiful robot replied, "It is sold in the country, and the price is about 5.5 billion turkeys. Xiao Yu was shocked when he heard this number, and hurriedly asked, "How much is it in star yuan?" The beautiful robot replied, "About 30 million star yuan." Hearing this, Xiao Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the country's currency is not worth much, and the disposable funds on him are less than 1 billion star yuan. Xiao Yu immediately ordered the robot beauty number 18, "Then buy it quickly, buy me a set of the equipment directly, and then rent a venue, and it must be expedited, preferably it can be used tomorrow, and it is okay to pay a little more, but the delivery efficiency must be fast." Robot beauty number 18 memorized all of Xiao Yu's requirements, and immediately nodded and responded, "Okay, master." Just as she responded to Xiao Yu, she had already contacted the merchant to place an order, and robot beauty number 18 then went to rent a venue according to Xiao Yu's requirements. It must be said that having such a close-fitting robot butler to assist is indeed very convenient, which saves Xiao Yu a lot of energy. Otherwise, it would take a lot of time just to find this kind of testing equipment, and he would have to do it himself. On the second day, Xiao Yu was also planning for the next matters. Butler robot beauty number 18 was doing things according to Xiao Yu's requirements. At the same time, Xiao Yu himself also bought 2 new bionic robot bodyguards in Avita's Industrial Group flagship store in the city. Robot beauty number 18 was not competent for the bodyguard function, so he had to buy 2 more. There are so many black technology products in the Blue Star world, and Xiao Yu feels very insecure without the protection of N800 nano arms. Maybe he meets an unknown person on the street, but his combat power is actually comparable to the Hulk, and there are also black technology products such as organic bodies, which makes it difficult to distinguish whether the person in front of him is the real person or a substitute. If Xiao Yu doesn't want to do big things, he doesn't have to worry too much about these things, and the big forces can't pay attention to him. But now he has to deal with the people of the Red Tide organization, and what he does is not something an ordinary Blue Star civilian can do. so he must consider these issues. With 2 robot bodyguards, Xiao Yu has no worries about the next possible meeting with Yan Lingjun. He has eliminated all the potential safety hazards. Before he didn't know about the N800 nano-arms, Xiao Yu was still very calm, thinking that he had the teleportation star ring plug-in. Even if some extreme situations happened, the worst thing would be to open the star gate and run away. There would be no problem in saving his life. But since knowing the existence of such a powerful black technology product as N800 nano-armed, Xiao Yu did not dare to guarantee that he had absolute life-saving ability. Even if he had a teleportation ring to run away, if the person on the other side quietly armed himself with N800, once he made a move, he would not have time to react to open the teleportation gate and run away, and he would be instantly taken down by the other party, and he would have no resistance. This is an absolute force-crushing comparable to dimensionality reduction attack. Obviously, only with the same N800 nano-armed body protection, Xiao Yu can walk in the blue star world as calmly as before. As for now, he must be low-key, cautious, and seek stability again and again. As long as he gets any of the 2 black technology products, N800 nano-armed or organic body, it is basically stable. Although the organic body is not as powerful as the N800 nano-armed, its function is also unique. The organic body does not need the original body to come forward. If Xiao Yu has this black technology product at this moment, he does not need to be so cautious when taking on the Red Tide organization this time. If the substitute is directly asked to come forward, there is no need to call out Yan Lingjun by name, and it is even okay to go directly to the territory of the Red Tide organization to negotiate. The real body is hiding in a place where no one knows, and the substitute is asked to go. The worst result is that the substitute is destroyed. At most, a new one can be created. 2 days later, Yan Lingjun contacted Xiao Yu again, and the efficiency was much faster than he thought. The Red Tide organization agreed to Xiao Yu's request and appointed Yan Lingjun to meet with him alone. On the same day, Xiao Yu gave her an address, and Yan Lingjun left Zhongzhou and flew to the city in Yanzhou where Xiao Yu was located. The next day, in the morning of local time, Yan Lingjun arrived at a meeting place as agreed. Ms. Yan, a woman with a beautiful figure and appearance, came in front of her, and Yan Lingjun recognized her at a glance. It was Xiao Yu's robot beauty number 18. A slight flash of surprise flashed across Yan Lingjun's face, and then she asked, "Where is Mr. Xiao?" The robot beauty smiled and said, "Please follow me." Yan Lingjun had no choice but to follow the robot beauty, but she didn't know where to go, and she didn't ask much. After a while, the robot beauty number 18 brought her to the rented venue. Just when Yan Lingjun was confused, the robot beauty said again, "Ms. Yan, I need a blood sample from you." Yan Lingjun asked in confusion, "What do you want my blood sample for?" The robot beauty said, "This is an indispensable part of your meeting, my master." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun was very confused, but she probably guessed something, and couldn't help but mutter in her heart, "This guy is really too cautious. Most likely he is worried that I have N800 nano weapons on me, and N800 is not a street stall product that is everywhere. Looking at this situation, if I don't provide blood sample testing, I probably won't see him today." Yan Lingjun nodded decisively and agreed. A blood sample was quickly drawn. Robot beauty number 18 took the blood sample for testing. About 5 minutes later, the test results were sent to Xiao Yu. At the same time, in a guest room of a commercial hotel in the city, Xiao Yu opened a holographic panel and browsed it. On it was the blood sample component test report of Yan Lingjun. The results showed that no nanoparticles were found. Xiao Yu was completely relieved and immediately contacted Robot Beauty number 18, "Bring her to see me." After waiting for about 10 minutes, Robot Beauty number 18 brought Yan Lingjun to the hotel and entered the guest room where Xiao Yu was. Seeing him sitting in the living room, Yan Lingjun walked over slowly, looked at him and said with a smile, "Mr. Xiao, it's not easy to meet you." Xiao Yu didn't comment, but also smiled and said, "Sit down." Yan Lingjun was not polite either, and immediately sat down at the seat next to him. At the same time, he looked around the Zhejiang guest room. Seeing this, Xiao Yu smiled and said, "Don't worry, there is no bug here, I have checked it." Hearing this, Yan Lingjun was relieved. This time she was no longer Xiao Yu's employee, but a representative of the Red Tide organization. When people arrived, Xiao Yu didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "How is it? Does your organization have any intention of cooperation?" Yan Lingjun smiled and looked at him and said, "Of course, otherwise I wouldn't appear in front of you now, but Mr. Xiao, how can we believe the words and promises you said?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu snapped his fingers and immediately got up and left for a while. After a while, he came back again and brought a potted plant on the table, as well as a bag of vegetable seeds, which were what Xiao Yu brought back to Earth 3 days ago. "I planted this with the vegetable seeds next to it 3 days ago, and it just broke through the soil and sprouted today." Xiao Yu briefly introduced it, then turned to look at Yan Lingjun and smiled. "I said I can provide fruits and vegetables with breeding capabilities. I'm not fooling you." At this moment, Yan Lingjun was immediately shocked. She stared at the tender leaves of a plant taking root and sprouting in the potted plant in front of her, and at the same time, she was secretly delighted. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136, Yan Lingjun Shock. Xiao Yu looked at Yan Lingjun, who was surprised, and smiled. "These seeds are for you as a gift." Yan Lingjun's surprised expression returned to normal. She basically believed it now. Moreover, before meeting him this time, Xiao Yu showed such a cautious side, which also indirectly showed that he was sincere in cooperation. After a while, Yan Lingjun looked at Xiao Yu and said, "Since Mr. Xiao has long seen the shortcomings of the Kingdom of Heaven, has he never thought about devoting himself to the revolutionary cause? If Mr. Xiao can join the Red Tide organization, this revolutionary cause will surely reach an unprecedented new height because of Mr. Xiao's joining." Faced with her direct solicitation, Xiao Yu was not surprised, and immediately smiled and said, "If we can reach this cooperation, isn't it actually supporting your cause?" Yan Lingjun was speechless for a while. When she came, her superiors told her to try to win over Xiao Yu. If Xiao Yu could join the Red Tide organization, it would be the best, but from his words, she could hear that Xiao Yu had no intention of joining the Red Tide organization. She did not force too much, but just threw out an introduction to establish enough trust and friendship first, and there will always be opportunities to strive for it slowly in the future. The core purpose of this time is to achieve cooperation, because what Xiao Yu can provide is indeed what the Red Tide organization urgently needs at present. The progress of this cooperation negotiation was very smooth. After confirming Xiao Yu's values and position, especially after reading the articles he provided that day, Yan Lingjun's favorability towards him increased significantly. The Red Tide organization also wanted to win over Xiao Yu, and did not put forward some harsh requirements, and even took the initiative to make concessions, which was very sincere. Xiao Yu was actually happy to see that the Red Tide organization could succeed in starting a business in Blue Star's Hangzhou, export the advanced ideas of great men and influence them, and even enable them to complete the upgrading and transformation of their ideas. Because he also wanted to see whether the Blue Star world, with its advanced scientific and technological productivity and extremely rich material foundation support, could achieve the ultimate goal of distribution on demand. So Xiao Yu was also full of sincerity. The smoothness of this cooperation communication exceeded the expectations of both parties. Xiao Yu did not expect that the Red Tide organization was willing to take out the technology of organic body first to show its sincerity and cooperation. At this moment, Xiao Yu thought for a moment, then looked at Yan Lingjun and said, "Let's do this. After I verify the organic body technology and confirm that there is no problem, in addition to providing you with food crop seeds, I will supply you with 2 million tons of food rations every year in the future. And it is not the unpalatable artificial synthetic starch, but the real grains. There is a growth cycle for grain crop seeds to be planted, and the atmospheric environment of Blue Star has changed suddenly, and industrial greenhouses need to be built to isolate the outside air. These must be prepared from scratch, which takes more time and cannot solve the urgent problem. The birth of another 2 million tons of grains can be put into the pot as soon as they are in hand." When Yan Lingjun heard what he said, she was immediately stunned. Her expression management failed. She looked at Xiao Yu with a look of astonishment on her face. "In addition to food crop seeds, there are 2 million tons of grains. Is it still so much every year?" Xiao Yu smiled and nodded to show his affirmation. Grains are simply carbohydrates, but in the Blue Star world, they are expensive and scarce foods that are much more expensive than artificial synthetic starch. They are luxury goods in the eyes of the lower-class people of Blue Star. It is no wonder that Yan Lingjun was so shocked. Moreover, the annual supply of 2 million tons is such a large scale. If it is converted into money, it is an astronomical figure. In fact, 2 million tons of grain is nothing in Xiao Yu's eyes, because the national grain output of his own eastern country on Earth reached more than 682.8 million tons last year, and these 2 million tons are just a fraction of it. It is worth mentioning that there is a reason why Xiao Yu proposed the premise that the organic body technology must be verified to be correct, because only by obtaining this black technology and creating an organic body with a different appearance as a substitute, Xiao Yu can better operate the transportation of millions or even tens of millions of tons of grain in his hometown on Earth. Because having a substitute means that Xiao Yu does not have to show up in person, and even does not need Lingjing technology to participate. Institutions related to Xiao Yu's original body cannot participate, and use the substitute to set up an additional team and open a trading company. In this way, Xiao Yu will no longer have to worry about the handling of food supplies on Earth, and there will be no hidden dangers to worry about. Even if Sherlock Holmes comes, he can't contact Xiao Yu. The black technology product of the organic body is already beyond the current cognition of the Earthlings. Even if the worst happens, it is discovered that food is missing on a large scale. At most, the stand-in will be blamed. Xiao Yu can directly destroy the stand-in from the physical level to cut off some information sources. No one who comes will have a way to investigate, and there will only be one more unsolved mystery. As long as the black technology of the organic body is obtained, Xiao Yu will no longer handle the matter of food handling and transportation through Lingjing technology in the future, and the companies and institutions directly or indirectly related to him will not participate. Instead, an organic stand-in with a foreign face is created. Xiao Yu uses this stand-in as a second hidden identity, and then establishes a related multinational trading company abroad. In the future, this stand-in and the company established by the stand-in will be responsible for connecting with the Blue Star world and transporting a series of fresh fruits, vegetables, poultry, eggs, meat and other foods. But at this moment, Yan Lingjun, who failed to control his expression, said to himself in amazement, 2 million tons of grain, so much, is enough to support the food consumption of 10 million people for 1 year, and enough to support the food consumption of all members of the Revolutionary Army for nearly 40 years. Hearing this, Xiao Yu's eyes flickered slightly and then disappeared in an instant, because he accidentally learned an important information from Yan Lingjun's involuntary words. According to the number she just read out, it can be inferred that the current size of the Red Tide Organization's Revolutionary Army is about 250,000 people. The size of this army is not small. Xiao Yu thought that the great man had only tens of thousands of people in the early days. After a moment, Xiao Yu glanced at Yan Lingjun and said in an orderly manner, I continue to provide you with enough food and supplies for 10 million people, not just for your organization, but I hope you can adjust your strategy and solidly follow the Group Z route to unite the majority of tens of millions of people. Hearing Xiao Yu's words, Yan Lingjun came back to his senses. Xiao Yu said slowly, the reason why your career is so difficult to progress is that there is a big problem with the root. You have not united the vast majority of the grassroots people. This is the fundamental reason why your team has not been able to grow and develop over the years. Of course, this is not your fault. It is the constraints of objective reality that prevent your team from growing, and it is also the reality that makes it impossible to take this route. Everyone follows you to fight the kingdom of heaven, but you cannot guarantee their basic survival, and they don't even have food to eat. Naturally, this won't work, but it will be different in the future. I will continue to provide you with food and material support and create such conditions for you. After Xiao Yu gained a deeper understanding, he also understood the unique environment of the Blue Star world. The situation on Earth cannot be copied and pasted. The Red Tide Organization cannot take this route. The biggest constraint of objective reality is that the current Blue Star world cannot grow land or produce food, and the value of land is therefore greatly reduced. A very simple and realistic problem. If you can't even guarantee food and clothing, of course no one will follow your revolution. They would even rather become refugees and run to the core forces of the kingdom of heaven. At least they can still eat relief food. Obviously, without the support and endorsement of the vast majority of the grassroots, and without support from both the upper and lower levels, it is equivalent to a castle in the air. Such a revolution is doomed to fail. It cannot unite the grassroots to form a prairie fire, and will never overthrow the powerful rule of the kingdom of heaven. Chapter 137, Obtaining the Complete Technical Information of Organized Body. Xiao Yu saw these problems, so he provided a large amount of food supplies, so that the Red Tide organization's appeal had a minimum material basis. At the same time, Xiao Yu provided them with food crop seeds with breeding ability, which was another epic buff bonus, which could make the land value of the Blue Star world soar immediately. Every time the Red Tide organization conquered a place, it would give the people who suffered in this place land and grow food. The fresh fruits, vegetables, meat, poultry and eggs that the lower class people were reluctant to eat several times a year, they could grow them on the land they were allocated, and they would have food every day in the future, not only full, but also good. They had never dared to think of such a day before. If the Red Tide organization could bring them such a change, how could they not support it? In order not to return to the past and continue to live that miserable life, they would definitely support it firmly, and would spontaneously join the army and resolutely go to the front line. The current Red Tide organization cannot take this route because the objective reality does not have the basic conditions, and Xiao Yu can completely create such conditions, so this route can be taken. That is the strategy of surrounding towns with villages. Although the technology of the Blue Star world is much more advanced than that of the Earth, no matter how advanced the weapons and equipment are, they cannot replace the role of people. If the theory is based on weapons, then it would be impossible for Xiao Yu to use millet and rifles to defeat the planes, tanks and cannons of Lao Mei in the founding war of Dongda, his hometown on Earth. The gap in weapons and equipment between the two was comparable to a dimensionality reduction attack by one side on the other at that time. Moreover, Xiao Yu knew that Lin Un had defected from the Heavenly Kingdom and brought a lot of advanced technologies of the Heavenly Kingdom to the Red Tide organization. As long as the power of the grassroots masses was mobilized and united, the military production capacity could still be pulled up. The Red Tide organization could also have a large armed intelligent machine army to shorten the gap in weapons and equipment with the Heavenly Kingdom's army. Therefore, Xiao Yu firmly believed that this path was also applicable in the Blue Star world, and it was even the only solution. Not to mention, the Red Tide organization also mastered the N-800 nano weapon, which represents the top combat power. As long as you conquer a place, you will distribute crop seeds, divide the land, build greenhouses, and grow food. Mobilize everyone. Before the sown food is harvested, I will distribute the grains and food I provide to everyone to pass this window of time to ensure that everyone has food to eat and will not starve to death. Xiao Yu added, if the population of the territory you conquer reaches 20 million, I will provide you with 4 million tons of grain rations. If the population expands to 50 million, I will provide you with 10 million tons of grain rations per year, and so on, until the internal grain self-production cycle is achieved. At this moment, Yan Lingjun listened carefully to the theoretical basis of the line policy mentioned by Xiao Yu, and even recorded it for memorization. While Xiao Yu was explaining the theoretical basis of the line policy to Yan Lingjun, he was also subtly exporting advanced ideas. And these advanced ideas would inevitably be brought to the Red Tide organization through Yan Lingjun, and would inevitably turn into a spark that would eventually become a prairie fire. Yan Lingjun listened very seriously and became more and more absorbed. When she looked at Xiao Yu, her eyes flashed with a strange light, and even the way she looked at him gradually changed. At this moment, Xiao Yu himself did not expect that he would capture her heart unexpectedly. At the end, Yan Lingjun suddenly said with a bit of sadness, but the organization is simply unable to bear such a huge budget expenditure for food and supplies. After saying that, she couldn't help but sighed, but Xiao Yu's next sentence made her fail to control her expression again. Xiao Yu smiled and said, just consider it as the exchange of the two technologies of N-800 nano-armament and organic body for this cooperation. I said, I actually look forward to your success in starting a business, revolutionizing the kingdom of heaven, and changing this world into a human world. Obviously, Xiao Yu intends to be their largest angel investor. With such strong support, Xiao Yu will share the black technology they master without reservation as long as he proposes it. Although Xiao Yu currently belongs to the vested interest class in the Blue Star world and is the target of the Red Tide organization, this is not a big problem. When the time comes, the headquarters will be moved out of the central continent kingdom of heaven. At this moment, Yan Lingjun's eyes were wide open, staring at Xiao Yu in a daze. After reacting, she couldn't help but say, really? Xiao Yu looked at her and nodded very affirmatively, which made Yan Lingjun very happy, and rarely wrote all the true emotions in her heart on her face without concealing it, because now she is basically defenseless against Xiao Yu. In the next few days, Yan Lingjun did not leave, but stayed with Xiao Yu, accepting Xiao Yu's many advanced theoretical ideas that were helpful to the revolutionary cause, which also made Yan Lingjun's personal thinking level reach an unprecedented level. At the same time, she also unconsciously admired Xiao Yu more and more. What Xiao Yu didn't know was that in just a few days, he completely captured the heart of the woman next to him. Time passed day by day, and on the 8th day, the two sides parted ways. In the morning, in the hotel room, Yan Lingjun packed up her luggage and handed a small object to Xiao Yu. This contains all the complete information on organic body technology. Xiao Yu was suddenly very excited, but he managed his expression very well and took it from her calmly. At this time, Yan Lingjun stared at him and said lightly, "When will you return to Zhongzhou?" At this moment, Xiao Yu was excited about the black technology in his hand that he had been thinking about for a long time, and for a moment he didn't notice that the woman in front of him spoke in a voice that was obviously more gentle than usual. Xiao Yu smiled and said, "I'll contact you when the time comes depending on the progress. It seems that Prism Company will be able to continue to remain in heaven unless something unexpected happens. I just don't know if your superior will transfer you away. To be honest, I am quite satisfied with you as an assistant." Haha, Yan Lingjun immediately said, "I will apply to my superior to let me stay. After all, you also need a stable contact person by your side." Hearing this, Xiao Yu still smiled and said, "Then you will manage the company for me while I'm away." As soon as he finished speaking, the housekeeper robot beauty number 18 suddenly came over and said, "The flight booked by Ms. Yan is about to take off. It is recommended that you leave as soon as possible to avoid delays." Hearing this, Xiao Yu put away the small item that Yan Lingjun handed to him. "Let's go, I'll take you to the airport." Yan Lingjun nodded. Yeah. About 20 minutes later, Xiao Yu took her to the airport and watched her go into the airport. But at this moment, Yan Lingjun suddenly stopped and turned around leisurely, walking back to Xiao Yu's surprised face. When he just wanted to ask if there was anything else, before he could say anything, Yan Lingjun suddenly approached him, put her arms around Xiao Yu's neck, and before he could react, he was kissed deeply by Yan Lingjun. Her sudden action made Xiao Yu stunned on the spot, and he did not expect such a development at all. For a long time, the two of them pulled away again. Yan Lingjun's pair of bright eyes were soft and charming, her head was slightly lowered, her cheeks were slightly red, and she was speechless for a while. Xiao Yu reacted from his surprise. This was the first time he saw her show a delicate and tender look like a little bird, which was very different from the past. After a while, Xiao Yu said with a teasing tone, "Is there a beauty trap?" Yan Lingjun, with a blushing face, lowered her head and whispered, I'm going back to Zhongzhou." After that, without waiting for Xiao Yu to reply, she turned around and hurried to the airport without looking back. It felt like she was running away. Xiao Yu couldn't help laughing as he watched her disappear. "I didn't expect there would be this unexpected gain," Xiao Yu muttered to himself. He had planned to establish his own foundation in the Blue Star world with blood ties from the beginning, and he had considered this aspect when he chose Yan Lingjun as his assistant. Now it seems that she is indeed a very suitable candidate. According to the original plan, after confirming that she is a suitable candidate, he would spend some effort to pursue her, but now it seems that she is being pursued. Yan Lingjun's kiss basically secured it. This little episode passed quickly. Xiao Yu immediately put it aside, and left this place and turned back. Now Xiao Yu's most concerned and most wanted thing was to urgently verify the complete technical information of the organic body provided by the Red Tide organization. Light up this technology tree as soon as possible. With the support of this black technology, Xiao Yu will be able to do everything with ease in the future, whether on Earth or Blue Star. Chapter 138, Verification and Creation of Avatar. Hotel Room. Xiao Yu opened the technical information Yan Lingjun gave him and looked it over after returning from the airport. Neuropatent. In the room, many holographic display screens were projected at this moment. Xiao Yu silently looked at the numerous technical information. According to the description in the information, the original body needs to use the assistance of this exclusive substance to connect to the organic body. There is also a brief introduction in the information. The original neuropatent was a derivative product when the scientists of Blue Star achieved a technological breakthrough in the field of DNA recombination more than a century ago. This technology was discovered as early as 3 centuries ago and has been widely used in the treatment of diabetes. In the later research projects, the scientists of the Blue Star world took this technology to a higher level during a breakthrough experiment, allowing the original body and the organic incarnation to move at the same time without any obvious sequelae. Simply put, it can achieve instant dual tasking or even multitasking. Moreover, with the assistance of the neuropatent, the original body can perfectly control the organic body to carry out normal activities even during sleep. It's amazing. This technology is really amazing, Xiao Yu was very excited and couldn't help saying. He initially thought that the organic body technology in the Blue Star world might be like the technology in Avatar, where the original body needs to lie in a special closed structure and sleep, and then connect to an avatar to control the activities of an incarnation. During this period, the original body is in sleep, and if the original body wakes up, it cannot effectively control the avatar. However, the organic body technology in the Blue Star world does not have such limitations. The original body does not need to sleep at all, and the incarnation can still move normally, which is equivalent to one consciousness controlling 2 bodies. Moreover, the 2 bodies can perform non-mirror behaviors in different scenes. Simply put, for example, if the original body is walking at the same time, the incarnation will not follow him. He may be sitting indoors drinking tea, reading newspapers, or doing other things. This is the so-called one mind for 2 purposes, but it requires the assistance of nerve enhancers, and can even achieve one mind for multiple purposes, that is, it can control multiple incarnations. In theory, as long as the original body's brain can bear it, it will be no problem to control any number of incarnations. However, this is only in theory. The actual situation is that the brain load has a limit, which varies from person to person and from individual to individual. Some people can bear the load brought by controlling more incarnations, while others can bear less, but almost all humans can control at least one incarnation. In the following days, Xiao Yu decisively entered the verification phase of organic body technology. He quietly established a temporary private laboratory in the country. Anyway, as long as the organic body technology was verified to be fine, the laboratory could be abandoned and there was no need to make too many careful layouts. Xiao Yu purchased the required equipment and instruments in the Blue Star world, according to the technical data. It took 2 Blue Star months to successfully establish the laboratory, and then entered the actual verification phase. Then, Xiao Yu recruited several volunteers at a high price in the local area. Of course, he did not tell the other party what to test. Recruiting such people can be done quickly in the Blue Star world. For many people who are on the poverty line, this is an opportunity to change their destiny. Some people are willing to take a gamble for it. As the saying goes, there must be a brave man under a heavy reward. The cultivation of organic bodies is very fast. They can develop into adults in just 1 Blue Star month. The growth process within this month will cause a crazy surge in metabolism until it develops into an adult and stabilizes again, reaching the metabolic level of normal life individuals. Xiao Yu recruited several volunteers to participate in the experiment to form multiple control groups. Some volunteers cultivated 1 organic body, some cultivated 2 or more at the same time, some used their own somatic cell clones, and some were volunteers A using cells provided by volunteers B, and volunteers B used the cells of volunteers A to cultivate and link organic bodies. In this way, 3 months passed unknowingly, and the progress of the experiment was extremely smooth. The data results showed that they were completely consistent with the technical information provided by Yan Lingjun. At this point, Xiao Yu basically believed that there was no big problem with the technology provided by Yan Lingjun. At the time of parting at the airport, the affectionate kiss from Yan Lingjun also explained the problem to a certain extent, and Xiao Yu also felt that she would not set a trap. But for prudent considerations, Xiao Yu still did not plan to go on the field himself, but continued to observe these volunteers who were undergoing the experiment for a period of 1 Blue Star year. During this period, Xiao Yu would also check in on Earth from time to time. Fortunately, there was a 500-fold time difference in the speed of time between the 2 worlds. It took him 1 year on Blue Star, but only 1 day on Earth. This gave him enough time to conduct experimental verification. After observing the subjects for a year, Xiao Yu finally had no worries and thoroughly confirmed that there was no problem with the technology provided by Yan Lingjun. Xiao Yu decisively ended the experiment, gave the money to the volunteers, and destroyed many of the incarnations cultivated in the experiment. But the volunteers could not leave yet. Xiao Yu still restricted them and did not allow them to make any contact with the outside world. Because this operation was carried out in secret, Xiao Yu personally went into dormant state during the period of link resonance with the incarnation. At this time, he had no ability to resist. If at this juncture, the volunteers accidentally leaked the news and were searched by the law enforcement officers of the country, it would be troublesome. Therefore, Xiao Yu could only lock them up for a while and cut off all contact with the outside world, and then release them after he had settled his affairs. By then, even if the news leaked out, it didn't matter. Before the law enforcement officers of the country arrived, Xiao Yu had already burned down the laboratory and had left Yanzhou long ago. In a moment, more than a month had passed. In the laboratory, in a huge cylindrical culture chamber, a young white man was seen floating motionlessly in the nutrient solution in the culture chamber. It was an organic body, and the original body connected to him was none other than Xiao Yu. However, Xiao Yu did not use his own cells to clone and cultivate the organic body, but directly took it from a previous white subject, because what Xiao Yu wanted was to control a substitute with completely different appearance and physical characteristics from him to do things that he could not do in person. Xiao Yu chose a white face, obviously for a purpose, that is, to let the substitute go to Europe and magnesium, and even integrate into their circle. After a while, the housekeeper robot beauty number 18 woke Xiao Yu up as planned. Is the link completed? Xiao Yu, who had also been sleeping for a month, woke up and asked number 18, who immediately replied, "Master, the progress is very smooth." Xiao Yu immediately said, "Then go and have a look." At the same time, the nutrient solution in the cylindrical culture chamber on the other side was slowly withdrawn, and the white man inside was also awakened. He opened his eyes and took his first extracorporeal breath. The nutrient solution in the chamber was completely discharged, and a tube deep in his throat was pulled out, and he also walked out of the chamber. At this time, the door of the laboratory happened to open, and two people walked in. It was Xiao Yu who had just woken up, and the housekeeper robot beauty number 18. Xiao Yu stared at the white man in front of him, and the two looked at each other. After a while, Xiao Yu suddenly had an idea, and the two turned their backs at the same time. Xiao Yu was surprised to find that the visual signals received by his brain could see the scene behind him clearly. This was seen through the eyes of the substitute, and the vision was generated in Xiao Yu's brain, which was equivalent to having a 360-degree field of vision. The brain has an autocomplete effect that automatically fills in missing or ambiguous information when processing information to achieve a logically self-consistent effect. At this time, Xiao Yu could see that the information behind was not the result of the information seen by his original eyes fed back to the brain, but the incarnation saw it and made the brain self-complete and replicate the complete information through the link resonance. Not only vision, but also the five senses of the organic body in the link resonance state can make the original Xiao Yu feel the same. Xiao Yu was very excited at this moment. The organic body technology in the Blue Star world is really awesome, a black technology, just like those cultivators in fantasy novels who have cultivated a second avatar, which is similar in nature. After a while, Xiao Yu and the incarnation turned around again. He looked at the incarnation and smiled and said, "Just call it Vitas." The incarnation also said, "Understood." The conversation between the two at this moment is actually a conversation between Xiao Yu and himself. The first sentence was spoken by the original body, and the second sentence was spoken through the incarnation. Finally, Xiao Yu turned and left, while controlling the substitute Vitas to wash his whole body and change clothes. Since then, Xiao Yu has completely mastered the organic body technology and can finally return to his home on Earth. Chapter 139, Xiao Yu's Plan. On the second day, Xiao Yu released all the volunteers who were being tested, and set the entire laboratory on fire, leaving it to the local firefighters to deal with the aftermath, while Xiao Yu left the country with his avatar Viras and the robot beauty number 18. A few hours later, Xiao Yu returned to Zhongzhou again, but he did not step into the territory of the Kingdom of Heaven, but temporarily settled in a city in the location of its neighboring country. At this moment, Xiao Yu and the avatar were in the same room. He opened the teleportation stargate and took the lead in stepping through the stargate to return to the bedroom of his villa residence in Linzhou City, his hometown on Earth. Xiao Yu looked at the avatar on the other side of the teleportation stargate, and he suddenly had an idea. If the stargate is closed, will my connection with the avatar be interrupted? He suddenly realized that this problem must be verified, otherwise the avatar will be arranged on the side of the Earth only in the future. When the avatar happens to be communicating with others, Xiao Yu's original body will run to the blue star world. As a result, the Stargate will be closed and the connection with the avatar will be disconnected. The avatar on Earth will suddenly lose consciousness, which will be very troublesome. Thinking of this, Xiao Yu made a decision in his heart. He immediately asked the avatar to go to the living room and asked the robot beauty number 18 to turn on the real-time video. Xiao Yu returned to the house and opened the teleportation Stargate again and decisively returned to the bedroom of his villa in Linsao City, his hometown on Earth. After a while, Xiao Yu chose to close the teleportation Stargate. The moment it was closed, Xiao Yu was slightly stunned, because he found that he had really lost contact with the avatar. Isn't it said that the quantum entanglement effect has a long-distance effect? After a moment of astonishment, Xiao Yu came back to his senses and couldn't help muttering to himself. The location of the blue star world has long exceeded the radius of the observable universe of the Earth by 46.5 billion light-years, and the two may be tens of trillions of light-years away. Now it seems that the so-called quantum entanglement long-distance effect also has a limit. After a while, Xiao Yu opened the teleportation Stargate again, and he suddenly sensed that he had successfully reconnected with the avatar, and the avatar was lying on the ground. Xiao Yu immediately came to the living room and watched the video recorded by the robot beauty number 18. The avatar in the video was standing fine, but suddenly lost consciousness and fell to the ground and passed out. The time node was exactly the moment when Xiao Yu closed the Stargate. It seems that when I come to the blue star world next time, I have to let the avatar lie down in advance and can't see outsiders, otherwise it will scare people if it suddenly falls unconscious without any signs in front of outsiders. While thinking about it, Xiao Yu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it can be reconnected instantly. If it can't be reconnected, it will be troublesome. Otherwise, if you want to shuttle between the two worlds in the future, you either have to bring the avatar with you when you shuttle, or you have to create a new avatar every time you shuttle. Either way, it is quite troublesome. Fortunately, it can be reconnected immediately, so it's not a big problem. When I come to the blue star world in the future, I will let the avatar rest and lie down in advance. After confirming that all matters have been considered and correct, Xiao Yu reselected the transmission coordinates and selected Africa, and then sent the avatar directly to Africa on Earth. Xiao Yu closed the Stargate and reselected the transmission coordinates in the bedroom of his villa in Linsao City and opened the Stargate again. Xiao Yu, who returned to Earth, also reconnected with the avatar Vedas. At this moment, the two were thousands of miles apart, but Xiao Yu could indirectly see the scenery of the African land through the avatar, and he felt the same as if he were there in person. This made Xiao Yu sigh again that the organic body technology in the blue star world is really a black technology. The next thing is to give the avatar Vedas an identity and then integrate into the Earth society. Xiao Yu has found a way, that is, refugees. Now that the Magic government is going to relax border immigration, then find a way to let the avatar run to Mexico, and then enter North Mexico and become a Mexican. In fact, Xiao Yu wanted to send the avatar directly to Mexico, which would save a lot of trouble. However, he had been to many countries, but he had never been to America. Without the coordinates of the country, he could not use the transmission Stargate to send it directly. Xiao Yu had to report to the authorities when he went abroad, so it was impossible for him to go there to light up the coordinates. The avatar could not appear in his home, because Xiao Yu had to make it clear that he had no connection with the avatar, so he could only send it to Africa. But this was not a big problem, just a little more thought. When Xiao Yu sent the avatar to Africa, he also specially brought some local specialties from the blue star world, that is, gold, which can only be reduced to general industrial metal on the blue star, is a hard currency with monetary attributes on Earth. Without money, it is difficult to move. But he did not let the avatar carry too much gold on his body, because too much would be dangerous. It was enough to cover the cost of the avatar entering North Magnesium. A week later, after many twists and turns, the avatar Vedas finally left Africa and successfully entered the Amaglica territory from Mexico. Then it took nearly 10 days, that is, in mid to late November, Xiao Yu controlled the avatar to open the way with money, and the Amaglica Commissioner Smith, who took the benefit, successfully helped Xiao Yu's avatar get the Amaglica nationality. The skin color of the avatar's white face also provided convenience to a large extent. Fortunately, Xiao Yu also speaks fluent English, and there is no language barrier in communication. In this way, the avatar controlled by Xiao Yu changed his identity under the name of Vedas and became a Magnesian. The identity of the avatar is Magnesian South African, and his ancestors are of Anglo-Saxon descent. Although it took a lot of effort, the identity problem of the avatar was successfully solved. Xiao Yu controlled the avatar to cash out the remaining gold on his body, and a total of about $1 million was cashed out. Then, Xiao Yu asked the avatar Virus to arrive in Silicon Valley, Northern Magnesium, California, and bought a house to settle down. Finally settled down, the incarnation Vedas entered the house he had just bought and sat on the sofa in the living room. He breathed a sigh of relief. He just spoke to himself not in English, but in authentic Chinese. If there were local people from Lao Magnesium nearby, they would certainly be surprised. But now, the incarnation Vedas is alone. It is worth mentioning that the local time in Silicon Valley is about 11 o'clock in the morning. At the same time, it is about 3 o'clock in the morning in Linsao City. The original Xiao Yu is already sleeping and resting, but when he is resting, he can still control the normal activities of the organic body under the effect of the nerve stimulant. At that time, the original is in a dream state. The organic body also needs sleep, because it is also a carbon-based life form and must follow basic life metabolism activities. The substitute has been arranged in place. In the future, the incarnation Vedas will be responsible for the large-scale transportation of food and materials from the Earth to the Blue Star world. Xiao Yu can also completely get out of it, and it is more appropriate to do this kind of thing as a magnesium person. The next focus is to make money. Yan Lingjin has already promised to provide 2 million tons of grain in the future. The supply will increase in the future, which also requires a lot of money. The money in the hands of the incarnation Vedas is definitely not enough. Xiao Yu is naturally not short of money, but he can't directly provide funds to the incarnation, because he can't have any intersection with the incarnation Vedas on the surface. Therefore, the problem of money has to be solved by the incarnation Vedas himself. The method of trading gold from the Blue Star world was directly possessed by Xiao Yu without hesitation. The aftermath work is really very troublesome. Although the substitute can be discarded at any time, it also takes a lot of time and energy to make a new substitute and arrange the identity to integrate into the human civilization on Earth. Xiao Yu arranged the incarnation Vedas in Silicon Valley, California. The purpose is obvious, that is, to play with high technology. Make the incarnation Vedas a supernova of the North Magnesium technology big star, and suppress Elon Musk. Xiao Yu already had a definite plan, which was to let his avatar Vedas start from the field of AI and beat up a group of AI companies in Beamray. It can be predicted that once this is done, the Squid Group within MRE will definitely give Vedas full support. Because from their perspective, there is finally someone who can compete with Xiao Yu, the founder of Lingjing Technology on the other side of the ocean, so they have to raise funds. Xiao Yu appeared in Dongda, and a series of major breakthroughs such as graphene, AI, and room temperature superconductivity made it both urgent and aggrieved to work on Amalika, but his own people couldn't do it, so they had no choice. It can be seen that if Vedas turned out at this juncture, such a technical genius appeared, and he was white, in the eyes of those Ansa people, it would be a great honor to have such a great talent in their ancestors' graves. They will definitely actively promote Vedas to be a supernova in the Silicon Valley technology circle, so as to achieve the expectation of being able to compete with Xiao Yu and Dongda. Chapter 140, Project Approved, Codenamed Shenlong Fighter. It was December. The layout of the incarnation Peter Vedas came to an end. The next few days would be to let the incarnation develop as planned in the North Magnesium Silicon Valley, following a classic route of the rise of magnesium technology giants, similar to Apple being born in a garage and Facebook being born in a campus dormitory. Xiao Yu asked his incarnation Peter Vedas to follow a similar entrepreneurial path and start a company first. December 7th, Avik Linfa E Company headquarters. In the morning, Xiao Yu had just arrived at the company when he got good news. At this moment, Chen Zaiking, CEO of Avik Linfa E, was reporting in Xiao Yu's office. The superiors have approved the project we applied for. While talking, Chen Zaiking also handed the approval materials he brought to Xiao Yu, who opened it and browsed it and nodded, saying, "Okay, now we can let go and do it." Chen Zaiking said, "I heard that Cheng Fei and Shen Fei are both working on the development of the 6th generation aircraft. and it is said that the progress is quite gratifying. Getting the approval also means that some confidential information will be disclosed to Avik Lingfei. As the head of the company, Chen Zhaking naturally knows some information. Of course, he must have passed the political review and must abide by the confidentiality regulations to know it. However, not everyone in the company can know it, and many confidential information is limited to the core members of the company. When Xiao Yu heard about the progress of the 6th-generation aircraft of Changfei and Shenfei, he couldn't help but laugh and said, "We have started a military competition with ourselves. Our country has set a precedent. In the future, military fans will no longer discuss which fighter jets are better than those of other countries, but which aircraft is better between Changfei and Shenfei." Of course, it has to be considered as Lingfei. This is really not an exaggeration. Only the top 3 countries in the world are playing with the 5th-generation aircraft. As for other countries, they haven't played it well yet. Even the 4th-generation aircraft has not been played well. Even looking at the world, there are only a handful of industrial countries that can build aircraft. When it comes to the 6th-generation aircraft, only Dongda is playing it seriously now. Day and Amai have fallen behind, let alone others. Amai is playing with a 6th-generation aircraft, but it is a PPT 6th-generation aircraft. New folder is the result of Amai's 6th-generation aircraft in the past 20 years. On the contrary, the 6th-generation aircraft on the Dongda side is about to be taken out and flown in the sky, while Changfei and Shenfei have only been doing it in the past 1 or 2 years. There is no one who can fight outside, so we can only learn from Joe Biden to fight with our left hand and right hand, and compete with ourselves. In fact, as early as 3 or 4 years ago, the chief designer of J-20 had said that Dongda's fighter jets had moved from the kingdom of necessity to the era of the kingdom of freedom. The so-called kingdom of necessity means that when building fighter jets in the early stage, we just follow what others do. In other words, the overall design, structure, and performance indicators of fighter jets are all formulated by foreigners, and we only need to refer to and imitate them. And entering the kingdom of freedom means that we will no longer follow others, because even if we want to follow, there is no target to follow. There is no one in front, and we have already walked ahead of everything. Whose style should we follow to make the 6th-generation aircraft? So no matter the overall design, structure, or performance indicators, we have to formulate them by ourselves. The research and development is completely free, and others will follow suit in the future. Titanium, carbon fiber, aircraft engines, flight control systems, sensors, 3D printing, machine tools, phased array radars, semiconductors, wind tunnel testing. Almost any aspect can be easily mastered, and now room temperature superconducting materials have also made breakthroughs. Xiao Yu put the document down and said decisively, "Since the approval has come down, let's officially start the project. We will try to send the 6th-generation aircraft into the sky before Changfei and Shenfei." After saying this, Chen Zhaking couldn't help but be stunned. How is this possible? Normally, the development cycle of a new fighter jet is 10 or even 20 years, and this is when the old Aircraft Design Bureau has strong support. We have no foundation and we are taking a wild path. Hearing this, Xiao Yu smiled calmly and said, "Nothing is impossible. Others haven't developed room temperature superconducting materials for more than 100 years, but we have developed it, haven't we? The wild path, in other words, is a new path. If we follow the rules, we will never catch up with the old aircraft design bureaus of Changfei and Shenfei in our lifetime." Half an hour later, Xiao Yu convened the company's design team. The approval document has come down. Today is the day when our new all-electric fighter jet is officially launched. The project code is Shenlong. Xiao Yu looked around at the more than 100 people at the scene, paused for a moment and continued, "All previous plans have been overturned, and the design is redesigned around the breakthrough of superconducting materials." Zhang Heng couldn't help but be slightly surprised by the materials on the conference projection screen. "Are you going to make a 6th-generation aircraft?" Xiao Yu nodded and smiled. "Yes, the general idea is very clear. It adopts a delta wing layout, no vertical tail, and must have super stealth performance, so the engine is on the back, the triangle-like wing body fusion design is adopted, and the vertical tail is cancelled. Without the tail and vertical tail, the largest radar reflection source of the whole machine is gone, which greatly improves the stealth performance of the aircraft." Xiao Yu continued, The fuselage adopts ceramic synthetic metal composite materials and nanostructure synthetic room temperature superconducting composite materials, with superconducting suspension vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. We will strive to enter the first flight in 2023. The first flight will be next year? When this was said, everyone present was stunned. Jiang Heng came to his senses and immediately concluded, this is impossible. From project establishment to first flight, it is impossible to do it in about a year. No aircraft design bureau in the world can do it, not to mention that our AVIC Linfa has only been established for less than a year. He came to almost the same conclusion as Chen Zaiking. Everyone felt that the boss's words were a bit too fanciful. The key was that the boss gave everyone such an outrageous KPI indicator, and I can't do it. Xiao Yu smiled and said, how do you know you can't do it if you don't do it? It's true that our foundation is not as good as the old aircraft design bureaus, but on the other hand, we don't have the burden of being an idol. We are more in line with the Free Kingdom sequence that Chief Engineer Yang mentioned than any of our peers. What is the Free Kingdom? It means not being bound by existing rules and regulations. In the field of research and development and design, we can give full play to brainstorming, so we are not afraid of explosive news. What we are afraid of is that there is no explosive news. Besides, our fighter jets are unmanned aircraft. There is no need for pilots to test fly and there is no need to worry about casualties. What's there to be afraid of? As long as we think it can fly, let's let it fly first. Xiao Yu looked around at everyone. The worst that can happen is a plane crash. It's nothing more than watching a few more fireworks shows. It's expensive to play like this, but don't worry about the money and funding. If 100 billion is not enough, then 20 billion, 30 billion, 50 billion. We are not short of money. Everyone present was stunned. My goodness, the boss's operation was simply too wild. At this time, Xiao Yu told everyone a piece of news that shocked and excited everyone present. I have good news to tell you. Another R&D team here has made a huge breakthrough in the battery area. Did Jiang Heng say that as long as the energy density of the graphene material battery is doubled, it can be equal to the energy storage of traditional fuel? Xiao Yu smiled slightly. Now I can tell you that our latest breakthrough is not just doubled, but super doubled. As soon as this was said, everyone was shocked. Jiang Heng said in shock, what? Super doubled? That is 4 times? This has reached the theoretical extreme value of graphene battery energy storage capacity. Chapter 141, Integration of Fighters and Bombers, Fighter Bombers. Everyone present was shocked to hear Xiao Yu's revelation. Not only did they not expect that the graphene battery technology would be so fast and have such a breakthrough, but the results would be so amazing. If the boss is not exaggerating, this is almost the potential of graphene batteries that has been directly tapped. It is impossible to raise it further, otherwise everyone thinks that physics will not exist. After Jiang Heng was amazed, he seemed to be talking to himself. If this is true, then the engine can indeed directly rely on arc ablation of the working fluid. Everyone thought it was unreliable before, because it was unrealistic to use jets for all-electric drive. But without jets, it is impossible to achieve supersonic speeds, let alone hypersonic speeds, because chemical fuels cannot be burned to produce plasma. Of course, arc ablation of the working fluid can also be used, but the problem is that there must be such a powerful power supply. But if the battery energy storage is super doubled, then it can really go the way of arc ablation of the working fluid. The energy is completely sufficient, and it is not a problem to double the range of traditional aviation fuel aircraft. Xiao Yu looked around at everyone and said, in short, the battery energy problem of the aircraft is no longer a problem. The speed of this technological breakthrough is too scary even for those present. If outsiders knew about it, they would be even more shocked. At this terrifying breakthrough speed, it is possible that the first flight will be achieved in 2023, completing an impossible dream miracle. Knowing such a major technological breakthrough also boosted everyone's confidence, and they all felt that they were still too conservative. In the following discussions and exchanges, everyone was bolder than before. The ideas that were considered radical in the past now seemed a bit too conservative. In terms of the design of the all-electric engine, it is mainly composed of 4 parts: the intake system, the turbofan engine, the circulating arc pulse detonation engine, and the exhaust system. The engine has 4 ducts. Under different operating conditions, the center cone moves back and forth to adjust the airflow of the duct, change the cycle parameters, optimize the overall efficiency, and generate appropriate thrust and electricity. In use, when there is power input, The induction motor starts to start the engine, and it does not need to use ground power to start. At last, Zheng Heng said in amazement and excitement, "This indicator is really too wild, only we dare to think and do it. If we really achieve it, this is not a fighter, this is definitely a fighter bomber." No wonder you, Mr. Xiao, decided to use the word Shenlong as the code name for this aircraft. Domestic aircraft have their own set of naming rules. For example, the Dragon series represents land-based fighters, such as the J-10 fighter code-named Mighty Dragon, and the J-20 fighter code-named Shark. The Shark series represents carrier-based fighters, such as the J-15 fighter code-named Flying Shark, and the God series is used for bombers, Ares H-6K, Thor H-6N, etc. Obviously, the code name of this aircraft of Avic Linfa E uses the word Shenlong, indicating that the positioning of this aircraft is a bomber among fighters or a fighter among bombers. Xiao Yu said, bombers are originally the product of World War II. In the current hypersonic era, they are becoming less and less applicable. The continuous integration of aircraft capabilities is the trend of the future. In the past, aircraft carriers parked various types of aircraft on the deck. Now, there are fewer and fewer types of aircraft on aircraft carriers, but the capabilities are becoming more integrated. In the past, multiple types of aircraft were required to cooperate, but now they are integrated into one fighter. Xiao Yu added, the J-20 fighter and Y-20 transport aircraft have been out for so long, and the H-20 bomber has not yet appeared. I think it makes sense. In the current hypersonic era and drone era, the position of bombers is indeed quite embarrassing. There are too many benefits of integration. First of all, it saves money. With more aircraft models, there are more production lines, and the production cost is high. Secondly, the maintenance cost is high. There are 7 or 8 types of aircraft on an aircraft carrier, while another aircraft carrier has only 3 types of aircraft after the integration of capabilities. The latter is obviously easier to maintain, with high maintenance efficiency and low maintenance cost. This is why there are only a few types of aircraft on aircraft carriers now. Xiao Yu's idea is also very simple. In this case, why can't the capabilities of fighter jets and bombers be integrated into one aircraft? The approach is indeed very wild, and ordinary people dare not think of it, but the wild approach has been successfully taken out, and that is a new approach. Avic Linfa E has no baggage, and dares to release any explosive materials. So, the first all-electric drive aircraft is positioned as a fighter bomber, and was born with the codename Shenlong. The reason why it is called a fighter bomber is that the performance indicators are too strong. This fighter must have a hypersonic cruise capability of Mach 5, and the supersonic flight can reach Mach 8.33. This speed cannot be caught up by any existing air-to-air missile in the world, and the missile cannot even catch up with the exhaust of the aircraft. The maximum bomb load of the 5th-generation J-20 fighter has reached an astonishing 15 tons, while the F-35 of Armenia is 7 tons, and the Su-57 fighter of the Big Goose is 6 tons. It can be seen that the J-20 is also the absolute number 1 heavy fighter among the 5th-generation aircraft. The maximum bomb load of its own H-6K bomber is only 12 tons. The maximum bomb load of the Shenlong fighter is directly 28.8 tons. The bomb load of the J-20 fighter is already fierce enough. The maximum bomb load of a Shenlong fighter is almost equal to the maximum bomb load of 2 J-20s now. This is definitely the bomb load of a strategic bomber. The comparison is more obvious. The bomb load of Armenia's B-2 stealth strategic bomber is 23 tons, or 22.6 tons to be exact. The bomb load is more than 5 tons more than that of the old B-2 bomber of the old magnesium. What else can this be if not a fighter bomber? In terms of range, thanks to the leap-forward super-doubled breakthrough in battery technology, the range of the Shenlong fighter can reach 12,700 kilometers, with a maximum combat radius of 4,550 kilometers, while the J-20 fighter is 5,500 kilometers, with a maximum combat radius of 2,000 kilometers, and the old magnesium B-2 stealth bomber is 11,000 kilometers. This is no longer a fighter bomber, but a strategic-level long-range fighter bomber. It is no exaggeration to say that as long as the Shenlong fighter comes out, the H-20 bomber project is likely to be retired in advance before it comes out. Once the Shenlong fighter comes out, it can do all the work of the H-20 and do it better. No matter how powerful the H-20 is, it can't kill the F-22 fighter of the United States, but the Shenlong fighter can, and it can beat it. Even the current J-20 fighter jets can only enjoy the treatment of accompanying the Shenlong fighter jets in the future. From the main table to the children's table, what else do you need a bicycle when you have the Shenlong fighter jet? The H-20 has become a mascot after it is built, and the probability of the project being shelved is very high. In the following days, after the Shenlong fighter jet project was approved, it immediately entered the fast lane of test aircraft development. After all, Xiao Yu required that the plane fly in the sky next year. With such a short time, everyone's KPI indicators are under great pressure and the task is heavy. But every participant in the project is excited. They know very well that this is pursuing a dream miracle that is almost impossible to accomplish. It is absolutely a blockbuster if it does not make a sound, and it will soar into the sky if it does not fly. When the Shenlong fighter jet is born, it will surely give the world an unparalleled shock. I dare not imagine how much the whole network and the world will explode on that day. Xiao Yu was very confident. With the technological support of the Blue Star world, he was just a porter and a magic modification. The progress was completely controllable and predictable. The first flight of a fighter jet in 1 year did not mean that it would be put into service and form combat effectiveness in 1 year. No matter how fast it was, it would take more than 3 years to be delivered to the Air Force and form combat effectiveness. But then again, it only took 3 years from the project approval to the delivery to the Air Force to form combat effectiveness, which was also a very explosive and shocking speed. Chapter 142, Absolutely crush all existing fighters. Under normal circumstances, it is almost impossible for Avik Linfei, which has just been established and has almost no experience, to achieve the first flight of the Shenlong fighter in about a year. But if the relative time velocity difference between the Earth and the Blue Star world is used, it will be another matter. Obviously, Xiao Yu intends to complete some time-consuming design and test links in the Blue Star world, such as some necessary wind tunnel tests and engine tests after the magic modification, and complete and obtain the final test data results in the Blue Star world. Even if Xiao Yu stays in the Blue Star world for 5 Blue Star years, only about 5 days have passed on Earth. First get it done on the Blue Star side, and then bring the data results back to the Earth. On the surface, it is completely different from the design experience and process of payers, but in fact it is all done in the Blue Star world. But in the eyes of payers, this is a completely wild way. Avik Linfei has no design experience in the eyes of outsiders and payers, but it can allow Xiao Yu to play a wild way and cut materials fiercely without following the routine. Such a fierce way is completely impossible for others to imitate, and they dare not imitate it. If someone sees Xiao Yu can do this, they think they can do it too, and dare to imitate the route of Avik Linfei, then they will definitely fall hard. Xiao Yu can play like this, that is, he can travel through the Blue Star world, take advantage of the time flow rate difference between the two worlds, and complete many time-consuming development processes and procedures in the Blue Star world, which is equivalent to saving development time on the Earth side. Others do not have the conditions like Xiao Yu, and are destined to be unable to imitate. Whoever imitates will be a failure. It is worth mentioning that before this, Xiao Yu would not have such a fast efficiency. After all, it was too amazing. It was incredible to build such a powerful cross-era fighter from scratch in about a year. But since he got the super black technology of organic body in the Blue Star world, Xiao Yu obviously has no worries, and no more scruples as before, so he quickly adjusted his plan and dared to be more unrestrained. The main reason is that the existence of N800 nano-armament gave Xiao Yu unparalleled confidence. This thing not only made his sense of security in the Blue Star world soar, but also on the Earth world. It can make a mortal body comparable to the power of gods. N800 nano-weapons are absolutely a dimensional strike on Earth. Only one N800 nano-weapons team is needed to easily destroy the entire national defense force of a medium-sized country within 1 day. It is a unilateral crushing trend, which is by no means an exaggeration. Although N800 nano-weapons cannot withstand the attack of a nuclear bomb, it has a terrifying flight speed of 60 times the speed of sound, which exceeds the third cosmic speed. As long as you don't think about it and face the nuclear bomb, even if the nuclear bomb can't hit you at all. In other words, the nuclear deterrence of nuclear countries is ineffective in front of N800 nano-weapons. With the support of N800 nano-weapons, Xiao Yu actually has an extremely transcendent status on the Earth side. The powerful deterrence of N800 nano-weapons is not worse than nuclear weapons. When that day comes, even if the whole world knows that Xiao Yu has alien technology, he is not weak at all. In front of the powerful deterrence of N-800 nano-weapons, who dares to ask Xiao Yu to hand it over? I am afraid that every day I may worry about whether Xiao Yu has the ambition to dominate the world, and whether he wants to be the big ball of the earth. The so-called Jianghu is not about fighting and killing, but about human relations and worldly affairs. The premise for this sentence to be true is that you can really fight and kill, and others will sit down and talk to you about human relations and worldly affairs. 2 days later, at the headquarters of Avic Linfa E Company. At this moment, Xiao Yu convened the core development team of the Shenlong fighter project to continue discussing. Today we will not talk about specific technical issues, but about the specific application scenarios of the new generation of air combat platforms, and even discuss some combat assumptions from the tactical level to the strategic level. Only by confirming the specific application scenarios can we clarify our development direction and understand where to put our strength. Xiao Yu looked around at Zhang Heng and other participants. Some new faces appeared today. After the country approved the project, it also provided some talent support. Xiao Yu said clearly and logically, for a brand new aerial combat platform like the Shenlong fighter, the integration of fighter bombers is a basic requirement. There is nothing wrong with calling it an ultra-heavy air superiority fighter or a fighter bomber with strategic long-range attack capabilities. From a tactical point of view, the Shenlong fighter has two biggest advantages. One is that it has an absolute generational advantage over all the 4th generation and 5th generation aircraft currently in service. The second is that it has the same level of deterrence as strategic intercontinental missiles. In air combat, the Shenlong fighter must have the following key technical points. 1 is omnidirectional, wideband stealth. The previous method of using multiple early warning aircraft or air-to-ground integrated networking to detect stealth fighters has extremely limited effect on the Shenlong fighter, or even completely ineffective. The second is ultra-high altitude and ultra-high-speed cruise, which is a qualitative leap compared to the 5th generation aircraft. The third is a large payload, which can carry long-range or even ultra-long-range missiles with a longer range. Zhang Heng, who was also present at the meeting, immediately spoke up. With these advantages, the Shenlong fighter can definitely crush all existing fighters. Its stealth performance is extremely good, and it may only be detected by long-wave infrared optoelectronic equipment. Other radars such as S-band, X-band, and L-band radars cannot detect it. Moreover, the flight altitude of the Shenlong fighter can reach near space. No matter the flight altitude or speed, it is far beyond the reach of other aircraft. It can be said that as long as the Shenlong fighter wants to fight, it will fight, and the enemy aircraft cannot refuse it. If it does not want to fight, it can quickly disengage, and the enemy aircraft cannot stop it. The initiative of fighting or not fighting is in the hands of the Shenlong fighter. It is worth mentioning that the concept of near space was first proposed by Mr. Jin, which refers to the range of altitude from 20 kilometers to about 80 kilometers. The Shenlong fighter can move in the near space, which is the home airspace of this fighter. Below the near space is the activity space of traditional aircraft, and above it is the outer space, which is what people usually call space, which is the operating space of spacecraft. As a third pole space independent of air and space, near space can enter the sky and control the sky, it can control the air and the ground, and has great application value in remote sensing, communication, meteorological detection and other fields. In addition, there are fewer thunderstorms and lightning in near space, and there are no clouds, rain and atmospheric turbulence. Aircraft operating here are free and safe. As for the terrifying performance indicators of the Shenlong fighter, once achieved, the maneuverability of all aircraft in front of the Shenlong fighter will be like slow motion. Air defense missiles will be powerless against such ultra-high altitude targets, let alone enemy aircraft that cannot even reach near space. On the other hand, the Shenlong fighter can rely on large phased array radars, large aperture optoelectronic systems and its airspace coordinated combat system to lock targets hundreds of kilometers away, and can even conduct coordinated operations of shooting and guidance. After launching ultra-long-range missiles, it will quickly evacuate, leaving the enemy no chance to dodge. Even if it is shot down, it will never find the opponent. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143, No one on this earth can withstand it. At this time, An aircraft designer who had just been sent by the state to join the Shenlong account could not help but say, if we really succeed in building the Shenlong fighter, the advantage over the current 5th-generation aircraft is also an absolute crushing of the generation gap, which may be more exaggerated than the generation gap advantage of the 5th-generation aircraft over the 4th-generation aircraft. After a pause, the designer suddenly joked, perhaps in the future, there will be a reverse picture of Xiangang. Lau Mei decided to sacrifice 27 F-22 fighters to exhaust the missiles of the Shenlong fighter, and then bet that our pilots underestimated the enemy and created a full-scale attack opportunity for the 28th F-22 fighter. When everyone present heard this, they burst into laughter. In the past, there was such a helpless and tragic statement circulating on the internet, first sacrificing 8 J-8s to exhaust the missiles of the F-22 fighters, and then betting that the pilots of the F-22 fighters underestimated the enemy and created an opportunity for the 9th to attack. After a lapse of 1 or 2 decades, the two poles reversed. At this time, Zheng Heng smiled and said, No, it is impossible for the pilot of the Shenlong fighter to underestimate the enemy, because this plane has no pilot at all. When everyone heard this, there was another burst of laughter. The Shenlong fighter is an unmanned aircraft. If it is designed to be manned, it will have to be forced to reduce the performance of the aircraft in order to ensure the safety of the pilot's life, and it must be cut drastically. It is precisely because of this that the Shenlong fighter was designed as an unmanned fighter. Apart from anything else, just an 8.33 Mach overspeed flight, no human's physical fitness can withstand the overload during this period. Unless the pilot has the support of the N-800 nano armament, if this thing is really armed, what a hammer plane. The flight speed of the N-800 nano armament is more than 60 times the speed of sound, which is even more outrageous. Even the Shenlong fighter has become a little karami without any resistance in front of it. It is pure bullying. Zhang Heng said, in front of the new generation of Shenlong fighters, the old F-22A, F-15X and other air superiority fighters have no ability to fight back, and the F-35A is even more so. Due to its lack of supersonic cruise capability, it appears extremely slow in front of our Shenlong fighters. Its fate may be even more tragic than when Stam's MiG-29 encountered the F-15C, Mr. Sun, based on the performance and capability positioning of the Shenlong fighter. What do you think? Xiao Yu looked at a man at a meeting. This man was called Sun Boda, and he was also a talent supported by the country, but he was a military and geopolitical strategic consultant. The first project officially undertaken by Avik Linfa was a military fighter, which must be related to the military. The product is to solve military problems, which must be inseparable from geopolitical and military issues. A moment later, Sun Boda analyzed the performance data of the Shenlong fighter and said, in terms of air combat, with the performance configuration of the Shenlong fighter, its combat radius can directly threaten and cover the Magnesium Army targets in the entire second island chain. At present, the main Magnesium Army targets in this island chain include bases such as Saipan, Guam, Tinian and Palau. If one more is added, it will be Diego Garcia. In addition, the Magnesium Army may also use some simple airport facilities to temporarily establish field and combat airports on small islands in the island chain. However, these airports have limited support capabilities and can only support a small number of aircraft. It is difficult to maintain long-term combat, and even C-17A transport aircraft are needed to shuttle between islands to provide rapid support. In the Magnesium Army's conception, the bases in this island chain are an important support for their attack on us from sea to land, especially when the first island chain has become extremely unsafe and may be hit by our tactical missiles and multi-purpose fighters at any time. They now pay more attention to the second island chain. From the current geopolitical situation, the Magnesium Air Force plans to use the second island chain as a forward base, and the Navy will also withdraw its aircraft carriers to the area, adopt a distributed combat strategy, and use MQ-25A drones to support frontline fighter groups to prepare for sea-air integrated warfare with us. To this end, the Magnesium Army is constantly strengthening Guam's ballistic missile defense capabilities, and the strategic intention behind it is also here. The Magnesium Army believes that our use of medium-range missiles to suppress such island targets may be less efficient, and the cost of long-term continuous suppression is too high. Therefore, they believe that they can consider deploying anti-missile systems to weaken the effects of medium-range missile strikes. while quickly repairing airports and doing their best to maintain the long-term and continuous operation of several combat bases on the second island chain to ensure continued combat capabilities. At this point, Sunboda changed the subject, but if we really develop the Shenlong fighter, the emergence of this new combat platform will make the second island chain that magnesium has placed its hopes on almost non-existent. Let's not talk about whether Lau Mei is right to think that our medium-range missile suppression is difficult to sustain. Even if our medium-range missiles cannot sustain suppression, we can use the Shenlong fighter jets to launch dozens or hundreds of hypersonic aircraft at their airports every day. I wonder if you can bear it, Sunboda immediately concluded and added, therefore, relying solely on the ground attack capability of the Shenlong fighter platform can fundamentally undermine Lau Mei's combat concept of relying on the second island chain for campaign deployment. The game between Dongda and Emery in the Western Pacific region is changing from offense to defense. Over the years, America has actually been shrinking back in the Western Pacific. On the surface, it is an offensive posture, but in fact it is a defensive posture, while Dongda is on the surface. The defensive posture is actually an offensive posture. Is there anyone talking about the first island chain now? No one has mentioned this word for a long time, and it won't be long before no one mentions the second chain again. It is true that the so-called first and second island chains are now in the hands of the old magnesium, but in fact they are all live targets. And they will be gone if they cannot withstand a few rounds of firepower coverage from the East China University. Both the old magnesium and the East China University are very clear about this. It's just that they haven't completely broken up and turned the table. If the table is really turned, these two island chains will definitely be taken by the East China University without any suspense, and directly become the first and second lines of defense of the East China University, facing the Pacific Ocean. At this time, Sunboda smiled and said, if we really have the Shenlong fighter, it will not only deter the entire Western Pacific region, but the entire Pacific Ocean will be covered by the Shenlong fighter. It will directly deter the entire North China west coast and the mainland of China, and even a global strategic deterrent. Sunboda continued, from the northeast takeoff, the distance to Alaska is 4,500 kilometers, just covering the entire Alaska. It is more than 7,000 kilometers to California on the west coast of North China, and more than 9,000 kilometers to the central region of China. The 28.8-ton full load capacity of our Shenlong fighter is too scary. With such a large ammunition base space, there is no need for external auxiliary fuel tanks to affect the stealth performance. Of course, it does not burn fuel, so it should be said to be an auxiliary battery tank. Sunboda smiled and said, you only need to make room in the ammunition bay to hang a 10-ton auxiliary battery box. You can still have an amazing 18-ton ammunition load. With the auxiliary battery box hung, the range is doubled, and the combat radius is increased from the original 4,500 kilometers to 9,000 kilometers. This combat radius can directly hit the Mississippi River in Lau Mei when taking off from the northeast airport. Sunboda couldn't help but secretly smack his lips when he said this. The Shenlong fighter has such a terrifying capability that it doesn't need to be on an aircraft carrier. It can directly take off from its own homeland to form a powerful strategic deterrent to Lau Mei's homeland. Sunboda even felt that the Shenlong fighter's integrated long-range strategic strike capability was a bit bullying. It was almost the same as using it to fight aliens. Lau Mei would definitely not be able to take it, and no country on this earth can withstand it. Chapter 144, Great Deterrence Benefits. If the Shenlong fighter is deployed in the westernmost part, and takes off from the mainland, and without the auxiliary battery box, the combat radius can directly cover the Red Sea, the middle of the Indian Ocean, the entire Middle East and the entire East Europe. If the auxiliary battery box is hung, taking off from the westernmost land airport in the mainland can directly reach the middle of the North Atlantic, completely covering the entire European continent, and at the same time reaching South Africa, which means that the entire African continent is basically covered. If deployed on the Island Reef Airport in the southern waters, the combat radius of the Shenlong fighter can cover the entire Australian area, and can directly reach the land within more than 1,000 kilometers of the mainland of Antarctica to the south. In other words, if the Shenlong fighter is deployed in the southeast, northwest and northeast corners of its own mainland, the strike range basically covers more than 2/3 of the entire Earth. It can only reach South America, which is 16,000 kilometers away. But there is no strong country in South America at all. It can only be said that there are big countries. Brazil's area is there, but Brazil is only a big country in terms of area, not a strong country. In a word, the capability of the Shenlong fighter can only be achieved by the strategic-level intercontinental ballistic missile, which is equivalent to a fighter jet having the strike capability of a strategic intercontinental missile, which is equivalent to the Shenlong fighter jet being able to sit at the same table with the three truths. Once this plane takes off, it will be quite scary in the eyes of foreigners if it goes out for a stroll. Because this is equivalent to the same level of deterrence as an intercontinental ballistic missile. If it can do things that only intercontinental ballistic missiles can do, then of course it has the same level of deterrence. Once this plane takes off, it is equivalent to launching an intercontinental missile in the eyes of other countries. How can it not be scary? The key is that intercontinental missiles are one-way tickets and disposable consumables, but the Shenlong fighter can go out for a stroll and come back. This is the most amazing thing, which means that the deterrence benefits of the Shenlong fighter are huge. It is true that intercontinental missiles have great deterrence, but that thing is expensive. It is charged in billions, and it is impossible to launch one whenever there is nothing going on. But the Shenlong fighter is different. Taking off to perform a mission, the electricity bill for 1 hour of flight is only tens of thousands of yuan. Even if the battery is fully charged, the electricity bill will not exceed 1 million yuan. It has the same level of strategic deterrence as strategic intercontinental missiles, but the cost-effectiveness of the Shenlong fighter is directly maximized. It is said that the cost of a DF-41 is 2.5 billion yuan, and the launch cost reaches 3.5 billion yuan. If calculated at 3.5 billion, the money for launching a DF-41 is enough for the Shenlong fighter to dispatch 3,500 sorties. Comparing the two, the cost-effectiveness of the Shenlong fighter is beyond words. In a sense, the Shenlong fighter is an intercontinental strategic missile that can be used repeatedly, and the natural deterrence benefit is huge. At this moment, consultant Sun Boda looked at Xiao Yu and others and said, "Since we have made similar tactical assumptions, let's boldly imagine such a scenario. When the Shenlong fighter joins our army's combat sequence, how will the sea-air integrated warfare in the Western Pacific unfold? On a certain day, at a certain time and minute, a hotspot conflict broke out between us and MG in the Western Pacific. At 10 o'clock at night, we first used multiple types of medium-range missiles as the vanguard, and multiple medium-range missile brigades fired at the same time, targeting the enemy's key combat facilities in the second island chain with conventional missile firepower. At the same time, we also used hypersonic missiles and supersonic cruise missiles to coordinately break through the defense. Hundreds of medium-range missiles streaked through the night sky, and the rocket tail flames illuminated half of the Asian sky. After the first round of strikes, the enemy's anti-missile system, airport facilities, ammunition depots, hangars in the second island chain, and the docks, loading and unloading areas, and oil depots of the Apra naval base were either severely damaged or directly destroyed. The enemy immediately initiated emergency repairs on the airport and mobilized troops to urgently repair the runway. At the same time, a field airport was established on the second island chain, and aircraft carriers were deployed based on the second island chain. Various types of transport aircraft, early warning aircraft, etc. frequently shuttled between the second and third island chains, transporting large numbers of troops forward, preparing to launch a campaign and launch a counterattack against our homeland. At this time, our fighter-bomber Shenlong fighters began to intensively dispatch to the second island chain, flying at a speed of Mach 8 straight to the military base of the island chain, and quickly launched airborne hypersonic missiles for supplementary strikes. The enemy attempted to establish a field airport on the small island, and this action was quickly detected by us. We immediately deployed Shenlong fighters carrying long-range cruise missiles to attack. The defenses of these new airports were weak, making it impossible for the enemy to gain a foothold on the island and send troops forward. Our Shenlong fighter jets not only have strike capabilities, but also have powerful situational awareness and electronic support capabilities, making them a sensing node for the second island chain. The enemy's aircraft carriers' attempt to retreat to the deep sea was quickly discovered. Our rocket forces long-range anti-ship ballistic missiles and hypersonic anti-ship missiles on 10,000-ton heavy destroyers arrived immediately and began to hunt down these aircraft carriers hidden outside the chain in an orderly manner. The enemy released MQ-25A unmanned tankers and some counterattacked F-35C fighter jets, but they had no power to fight back in front of our new generation combat platform Shenlong fighter jets. They were destroyed under the beyond visual range strike and no trace of the Shenlong was seen, even if the enemy has a small number of B-21 Raider bombers taking off from the third island chain. It cannot change the situation. The closer they fly to our homeland, the higher the probability of encountering Shenlong fighter jets. Once discovered, they will be destroyed immediately and there will be no possibility of survival. The Shenlong fighter jets can launch long-range air-to-air missiles 400 kilometers away. At the same time, several other squadrons of Shenlong fighters have taken off from the northeast with auxiliary battery boxes mounted. They are flying at full speed at a hypersonic speed of Mach 8.33 in near space at an altitude of 20 to 80 kilometers to launch a counterattack, approaching the Alaska region, and one squadron is attacking the area. The remaining squadrons continue to fly at high speed in near space through Canada and head straight for the enemy's homeland to launch a counterattack. The integrated fighter bomber Shenlong fighters destroyed the enemy's air control forces along the way while strategically bombing its important ground strategic military facilities. The war has reached this point and the enemy is unable to fight again. Precious combat resources have been destroyed in large numbers by the Shenlong fighters and cannot be replenished in the short term. The mainland has already suffered a blow, and the counterattacks of several island chains ahead have come to nothing. The strongholds in the area continue to be under pressure until all the enemy's drones and manned aircraft are destroyed. I have no choice but to admit defeat. Finally, Sunbota's fictional deduction was completed. He looked at Xiao Yu and others and added, with such terrifying performance indicators as the Shenlong fighter, it is a real strategic level killer, and it can fundamentally change and reshape the existing strategic pattern. Sunbota continued, it can be said that if this killer is really used, it will basically crush all its conventional forces unilaterally. Except for nuclear counterattacks, conventional forces have no counterattack capabilities. Even if it is a nuclear counterattack, as long as the Shenlong fighter can appear over North Magnesium, it will destroy most of their nuclear counterattack forces before their nuclear forces are launched. The whole world knows that the easiest stage for intercontinental missiles to be intercepted is the initial launch stage. The reason why they cannot be intercepted is that during the launch period, the opponent is unlikely to appear in the homeland, so it is impossible to intercept. At the end, it is impossible to intercept when it exceeds 30 times the speed of sound. But the Shenlong fighter can reach the opponent's homeland directly, which is completely different. The enemy's nuclear bombs are still in the launch vehicles and silos, and they may be bombed by the Shenlong fighter before they go up. Not to mention destroying them all, it can also greatly weaken the enemy's land-based nuclear counterattack capabilities. Moreover, the enemy's air-based nuclear counterattack no longer exists, because in front of the Shenlong fighter, the enemy can no longer have air superiority, and the only thing left is the nuclear counterattack of sea-based nuclear submarines. The sea-based nuclear strike force can only be handed over to the anti-submarine forces of the enemy. No matter how powerful the Shenlong fighter is, it cannot defeat everything. But there is no doubt that being able to achieve this level is a height that no other active fighter can reach, and it is basically an invincible and unique air force on the Earth. Chapter 145, the most expensive fighter jet in the world. As soon as the seminar ended, Xiao Yu came to the company's R&D center. It is already December, and 2022 is about to end. According to the original plan, the prototype superconducting suspension test is to be carried out within the year. This test has only one task, which is to test the use of room temperature superconducting composite materials for the fuselage material of the aircraft. Simply put, it is to make an aircraft at random, and other parts are ready-made. Only the test is that it does not rely on aerodynamic layout and lift, and only relies on the room temperature superconducting material fuselage to allow the aircraft to float and land vertically as a whole. During this period, Xiao Yu also produced 30 tons of room temperature superconducting materials for experimental purposes, and would not do too much. After all, the nominal room temperature superconducting material synthesis production line has not yet been established. These 30 tons are produced in the laboratory at any cost for the test needs of the Shenlong fighter. The manufactured nanostructured room temperature superconducting composite materials will account for about 22% of the empty weight of the aircraft body. For example, an aircraft with an empty weight of 15 tons will require about 3.3 tons of this material. As an integrated fighter bomber, the Shenlong fighter is an ultra-heavy fighter. Its full load can reach an astonishing 87 tons, and its empty weight reaches 58.2 tons. According to the proportion, A Shenlong fighter will need 12.8 tons of room temperature superconducting composite materials. The estimated cost of room temperature superconducting materials reported by Xiao Yu to Zhao Haiyang before was 800 million to 1 billion per ton. If calculated at a price of 800 million, a Shenlong fighter would cost 10.2 billion just to use 12.8 tons of room temperature superconducting materials. The total cost of the whole machine is estimated to reach 11.8 billion, and room temperature superconducting materials account for about 86% of the total cost of the aircraft, which is undoubtedly the absolute bulk of the funds. This price can build 17 J-25th generation fighters, which is definitely the most expensive fighter in the world. But as long as it can be built and achieve the performance at the time of design, let alone the cost of 11.8 billion, even if it doubles to 23.6 billion per aircraft, the military will definitely not be vague, because such a powerful strategic killer, one aircraft can be equivalent to 100 or even more J-25th generation fighters. Zhang Heng, who is accompanying him, said to Xiao Yu, the test flight application has been approved, and the superconducting suspension vertical takeoff and landing test will be carried out at the end of the month as planned. At the R&D center, Xiao Yu looked at the prototype in front of him and nodded and said, if there is no project approval, many key equipment components cannot be bought even if you want to spend money. It is really unlikely to test the superconducting suspension as planned this month. The prototype in front of him is actually a traditional aircraft, not fully electric drive, and has no combat system or electronic warfare system. It can be said to be half an empty shell. But its test mission this time does not need to use those modules, only the superconducting suspension ability of the fuselage is tested. There is not much aerodynamic layout. After all, in theory, a brick shape can also be suspended. However, the appearance of this prototype is very handsome. It also has a delta wing layout and no vertical tail, which looks extremely sci-fi. At last, Xiao Yu said with satisfaction, then fly according to the schedule, and fly openly, without hiding. Xiao Yu added, of course, it is okay for the outside world to see or even take pictures of it flying, and the military has no special requirements, but the performance parameters, especially the performance parameters of the Shenlong fighter, are top secret information and cannot be leaked. This is clearly stated by the country and the military. Zhang Heng nodded and said, understood. If it were 10 or 20 years ago, the outside world would not even be able to see the pictures of it flying. But now is different from the past. There is no need to be too secretive. If necessary, it will even take the initiative to show up to boost morale. Now the Big Goose and the two Mao are fighting fiercely outside, including the undercurrent in the Middle East. Dongda has to cheer up those younger brothers who are knocking on the West, give them confidence, and undermine the confidence of the West. Taking the initiative to show high-tech equipment that even the old ones don't have is one of the ways to show strength and deterrence. It is worth mentioning that at this moment, the country and the military did not think that Avik Linfei could achieve much success. The approval of the project was more of an appreciation of Xiao Yu. They approved the Shenlong project with a mentality that failure was expected and success would be a pleasant surprise. In addition, the sixth-generation aircraft projects of Changfei and Shenfei were progressing quite smoothly, but they were kept secret, and few people outside knew the actual situation. To put it bluntly, they did not have any high expectations for Avik Linfei. If you want to do it, then do it. Xiao Yu left the R&D center, returned to his office and called Chen Ziking over. After waiting for a while, Chen Ziking came to the office and saw Xiao Yu and said directly, Mr. Xiao, what's the matter? Xiao Yu directly ordered, write a document and apply to your superiors for the flight data of fighter pilots. Our AI intelligent body needs these valuable data to feed the large model. The Shenlong fighter developed by the company is an unmanned aircraft controlled by AI, which requires a large amount of pilot data to train the AI model, but these valuable data can only be obtained by applying to relevant national and military departments. Xiao Yu's ultimate idea is to let human pilots control the Shenlong fighter in the simulated cockpit on the ground, and the pilots will present real-time images through VR head-mounted display devices in the simulated cockpit, so as to achieve the same as sitting in a real plane. But this is not easy to achieve. First, due to the current level of communication technology on Earth, the delay problem of image and command transmission is difficult to solve for a while, and this is undoubtedly a fatal flaw in the ever-changing battlefield. Human pilots are in the simulated cockpit on the ground, and the aircraft is thousands of kilometers away. The fighter plane is flying so fast that they have to face the physical problem of the Doppler shift effect. One of the reasons why the mobile phone signal on the current high-speed rail is not good is the Doppler shift. Mobile phone signals are essentially electromagnetic waves, so there is a Doppler effect. When the high-speed rail passes through the communication base station quickly, the frequency of the electromagnetic waves received by the base station from the mobile phone will become higher. Conversely, when it is far away, the frequency of the electromagnetic waves will become weaker. This frequency shift will cause the use of mobile phones to send pictures and videos. The electromagnetic wave frequency of the transmitter is inconsistent with the frequency of the receiver, which will cause problems such as reduced transmission rate and jamming delay. If the Shenlong fighter is remotely controlled by a human pilot on the ground in the simulated cockpit, such problems will also occur, and it will be more obvious. The high-speed rail is like this. The Shenlong fighter supersonic cruise at Mach 5 and overspeed flight above Mach 8 will make the Doppler effect more obvious. In addition, the computer processing power on the fighter is also a constraint. The intelligent mechanical combat units in the Blue Star world, such as unmanned fighters, have integrated quantum processing technology and are equipped with a quantum computer. With such powerful computing and processing capabilities, real-time battlefield image analysis and calculation processing are all within reach. Obviously, the Shenlong fighter jet, in its current state, cannot be remotely controlled by human pilots in real time through a simulated cockpit on the ground. We can only wait for the communication technology to be further upgraded in the future, and quantum computers to be mastered, so that human pilots can remotely control the aircraft in real time through a simulated cockpit on the ground to perform combat missions. It is much safer to force this with the existing technical system on Earth than to completely hand it over to the AI intelligent body to execute. We only need to give the AI the decision of the task instruction, and the AI will autonomously execute the task after receiving the decision. Chapter 146, Chujinmen. Although there is no support for quantum computers yet, the computing and processing capabilities of the Shenlong fighter are not weak. After the pilot is gone, the space in the cockpit can be freed up to place more processors, and the computing power is definitely enough. Moreover, the AI agent of Lingjing technology has a complex neural network and has the ability to evolve through deep learning. As long as there is enough data to feed and train, the AI agent of the Shenlong fighter will not be worse than human pilots in the future, and may even exceed the capabilities of human pilots. The shortcoming is that when AI faces a scene that has never been encountered before, it is equivalent to entering an unknown field and does not know how to deal with it. The battlefield is changing rapidly, and at this time it is not as good as the human pilot's improvisation. Xiao Yu pursues human pilots to control the aircraft in the simulated cockpit in order to make up for the disadvantages of AI in this regard. But at present, we can only feed a large amount of data to train the AI model, and at the same time, we must continuously iterate self-learning to continuously reduce the exposure to unknown areas. In addition to applying for data support from the military, Xiao Yu will also use various public flight data from the Blue Star world to feed and train this AI agent. In short, it is to reduce the exposure of the AI agent to unknown areas as much as possible. Don't seek absolute perfection, just perfection. Xiao Yu left Avic Linfa E Company after arranging all matters. Next, he will wait for the end of the month to conduct the superconducting floating test of the prototype. Villa residence. Xiao Yu returned home and just arrived at the large living room on the first floor. He noticed a woman in the living room at a glance. However, when he saw her, Xiao Yu couldn't help but be slightly stunned. The woman in the living room was estimated to be 1.7 meters tall, with a slim figure, light and slender eyebrows, a nose as soft as jade, skin as white as snow, a pair of delicate eyes, a pair of watery eyes, and her eyes were so beautiful and moving. The woman also noticed him. The two looked at each other for a moment, and she suddenly walked slowly to Xiao Yu. Brother Yu, let's remarry. Xiao Yu came back to his senses from his slight daze, ignored her and walked straight to the sofa to sit down, saying unhappily, you'd better put away your poor acting skills, it's really fake at first glance, and your sister wouldn't say it in a repetitive way. The woman turned around and looked at Xiao Yu in a daze. No way? I specially dressed up as my sister's usual makeup and imitated her tone, but I actually knelt down. I was careless. After that, she walked briskly to Xiao Yu and sat down. This woman is Chu Jingmen, the twin sister of Xiao Yu's ex-wife Chu Jintang. The two sisters look exactly the same, have the same height, and even have similar voices. Even if you look carefully, it is difficult to tell them apart if you don't spend enough time with them. However, the two girls have different personalities. Chu Jinming is more lively and agile. As long as they spend a long time together, it is still easy to tell them apart. But in the early years when they were not familiar with each other, Xiao Yu also had difficulty telling them apart, and he made many mistakes. You come to my place to eat and drink again. You are addicted to taking advantage of me, right? Xiao Yu tilted his head and glanced at Chu Jinming. Chu Jinming smiled, her beautiful eyes were extremely beautiful and charming. She took a piece of fruit from the fruit plate on the table and started eating, and complained to herself without raising her head. I don't know what my sister thinks, she actually divorced you, she regrets it now, my dad is so angry when he knows about this. Hearing this, Xiao Yu was silent and didn't respond to her. Chu Jinming knew that Xiao Yu was divorced from her sister, but she still called him brother-in-law on the left and right, and still came to eat, drink and pocket money from time to time. Her lively and agile personality is indeed pleasing, and Xiao Yu has been pampering her as a younger sister over the years. Xiao Yu picked up the cup to drink water. At this time, Chu Jinming suddenly hugged his arm and said playfully, brother-in-law, since my sister doesn't want you, why don't I try to take over? Anyway, I look exactly like my sister, there is no difference, ahem. This word reached Xiao Yu's ears while he was drinking water, and he choked him. Chu Jinming tilted her head and looked at him, her eyes full of water and agile. Are you role-playing here? Still trying? Xiao Yu's face turned black, and he directly pulled her little hand away from his arm. It was really shocking. Chu Jinming put on a very serious face and hummed, who is kidding you? I'm serious, okay, warning you, if you are so fooling around, don't come to my place to eat and drink and ask me for pocket money. I will say hello to Uncle Qin later and you are not allowed to come in the future, Xiao Yu warned her with a serious face. Seeing that Chu Jinming seemed to be fearless, Xiao Yu shook his head helplessly, and then took out his mobile phone, opened a bank app and transferred some pocket money to Chu Jinming. This girl used to come here every time to eat and drink and ask for pocket money, or she would pester him in various ways, and Xiao Yu didn't have any good way to deal with her. Throwing the phone aside, Xiao Yu tilted his head to glance at Chu Jinming, pretending to be impatient. Okay, go and play by yourself. At this time, Chu Jinming suddenly pounced on Xiao Yu who was caught off guard, put her arms around his neck and kissed him on the face, smiling playfully. Thank you, brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is still the best to me. Xiao Yu immediately pulled her away from him. Get away, you have no sense of boundaries every day. Chu Jinming pouted and hummed, I know brother-in-law is a busy man, you go ahead and be busy. After that, Chu Jinming got up and walked a few steps, then looked back, made a heart shape with her little hand to Xiao Yu, opened her almond lips and smiled. Let's go shopping. Oh, yes, you have to take care of dinner today. Goodbye, brother-in-law. Xiao Yu waved his hand without raising his head. Looking at Chu Jinming's departing back, Xiao Yu sighed softly, thinking back to her incoherent words just now. He was speechless and didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he quickly put all these things behind his mind. He didn't forget that there were still important things to arrange. After a while, Xiao Yu called the housekeeper Qin Yu and ordered, Uncle Qin, you start to do one thing, buy all the villas in this villa area for me as soon as possible, and demolish them all in half a year. Qin Yu was stunned for a moment when he heard this, but he didn't ask anything, just nodded and said, okay. Xiao Yu's move was to make arrangements for the next N800 nano weapon. He was going to build a huge base laboratory underground in this villa area. The production and manufacturing of organic bodies, the production and manufacturing of N800 nano weapons, and some other blue star black technologies that could not be shown to others in the future were all arranged in it. Moreover, he would not let the construction team on Earth to do it. Xiao Yu chose to use the robot engineering team in the blue star world to do it secretly. He directly hollowed out the underground. The construction materials were obtained from the blue star world, and the hollowed-out oil layer was transported to the blue star world through the teleportation stargate. Except for Xiao Yu, no one else would know about the existence of this underground laboratory, and the area must be shielded from detection by some scientific and technological equipment. Chapter 147, Single Organ Cloning Technology. The villa area where Xiao Yu currently lives is very large, with a total of 36 villas, far away from the city center. The overall area is large, which means it is definitely not in the city center, and most single-family villas are built on the edge of the city or in the suburbs to pursue a quiet and comfortable living environment, away from the hustle and bustle of the city center. The choice of this geographical location is mainly to provide better privacy and environmental quality, because the city center is usually accompanied by high noise and population density. The disadvantage is that it is far away from the city center, which is not conducive to commuting, inconvenient to live, and you have to run a long way to buy vegetables and things. But then again, those who can afford single-family villas are all wealthy people, and there is no problem of inconvenience in commuting or living. If you want to buy anything, you will have a hired housekeeper to handle it. Linzhou City is not a first-tier city. Relatively speaking, the price of villas with the same hardware configuration is not expensive. The 36 villas in the villa area where Xiao Yu is located are worth more than 1.3 billion yuan, and the average price of each villa is less than 40 million yuan. But if its configuration is placed in a first-tier city like Modu, the price of each villa will not be less than 200 million yuan. Qin Yu's efficiency is very fast. After Xiao Yu instructed him about this matter, he directly contacted the developer of the villa to obtain the contact information of other villa owners in this villa area, and the developer personally helped to contact these owners. Originally, only 12 villas were sold in this villa area, but in the past 6 months, all the remaining ones have been sold, and the price has increased by several million. The most direct reason for the sudden popularity is that the world's richest man lives here, making this villa area a hot commodity. This matter was handled very smoothly and was completed today with almost no resistance. All the villa owners learned that Xiao Yu wanted to buy their houses, and they readily agreed after a simple discussion and communication. On the one hand, Xiao Yu gave enough double the premium to make them a lot of money, and on the other hand, they did not want to offend Xiao Yu, who is now in his heyday. The reason given to the public is very sufficient for safety considerations to take all the houses in the villa area, buy them and then demolish them all. After all, Xiao Yu's current safety issue is a very important matter, and even the country attaches great importance to it. The other 35 villas in this villa area were bought and demolished, leaving only the one where Xiao Yu currently lives. Then the entire villa area was converted into a large private manor to prevent outsiders from entering and leaving. At the same time, a no-fly zone was set up in this area. If any DJI drones were flying nearby, they would be shot down by electromagnetic interference. At dinner time, there was one more person on the table tonight, Chu Jinmeng. Xiao Yu glanced at her and asked casually while picking up the dishes, "You have graduated for half a year, why don't you find a job?" Hearing this, Chu Jinmeng said casually, "Some research institutions in China are very seniority-based, and I can't get many project resources. I don't want to go. There are several scientific research institutions abroad that have invited me, but I don't want to go abroad." Xiao Yu shook his head. Pick and choose. Chu Jinmeng and her sister Chu Jintang are twin sisters of the same age, but the sister graduated as a freshman, while Chu Jinmeng started studying for a master's degree and received a doctoral degree certificate in the first half of this year. At this time, Chu Jinmeng bit the chopsticks at the corner of her mouth and looked at Xiao Yu and said with a smile, "Brother-in-law, how about I use my connections here to find a job for you?" Xiao Yu said without raising his head, "You are engaged in the field of bioengineering, which has nothing to do with the business of my two companies. What can I do if I put you in?" After dinner, Xiao Yu came to the sofa in the living room and sat down. After a while, Chu Jinmeng came and sat next to him. Xiao Yu tilted his head and asked her, "I remember you said before that you are studying the clinical application of single-organ cloning technology, right?" Hearing this, Chu Jinmeng nodded lightly. "Why do you ask this?" Xiao Yu said concisely. "Are there any results?" Chu Jinmeng heard it and immediately made a bitter face. "I can only say that the prospects are bright, the challenges are heavy, and the difficulties are full." Xiao Yu, who was sitting next to him, couldn't help but think of the Blue Star world. The cloning technology there is extremely advanced. The single-organ cloning technology has long been extremely mature, and it can even allow a person to literally transplant consciousness and memory to another clone. A successful transplant is equivalent to letting a person live again, achieving immortality in an alternative sense. Chu Jinmeng said sarcastically, "There are too many thorny problems in single-organ cloning technology. The vascularization problem is the first to bear the brunt. A complete and functional vascular network needs to be built inside the newly cloned organ to ensure sufficient blood perfusion. However, The current technology still lacks precise and effective regulatory means and key links such as inducing endothelial cell proliferation, migration, and vascular branch formation. The prototypes of organs cultivated in vitro are often unable to seamlessly connect with a host vascular system in time after implantation due to insufficient angiogenesis, resulting in organ ischemia and hypoxia, and it is difficult to function normally, or even necrosis. It is worth mentioning that the current level of cloning technology on Earth can completely clone individual lives, but it cannot clone single organs. Moreover, the cloning of complete individuals cannot be completely cultivated in vitro. A single cell needs to be cultured into an embryo, and then the embryo is implanted into the uterus of a female animal for development. Single organ cloning technology does have a bright future, because the resistance at the level of moral factors will be greatly reduced, and market demand is needless to say. When talking about his major, Chu Jinming immediately started to talk non-stop. Reconstruction of neural innervation is also fraught with difficulties. Nerve fibers are like precise wires that are responsible for transmitting electrical signals and regulating the physiological activities of organs. The connection between cloned organs and the nervous system is very complex, involving many microscopic processes such as the directional growth of nerve axons and the precise matching of neurotransmitter receptors. At this stage, the industry cannot fully understand the mechanism of action of neural guidance factors, and it is difficult to simulate the in vivo neural development environment in vitro, and it is impossible to respond accurately to the body's instructions. For example, after a heart transplant, it cannot coordinate with the autonomic nervous system to maintain a stable heart rate, and after a liver transplant, it cannot accurately sense the body's metabolic needs to regulate bile secretion. Functional maturity is also a major technical difficulty. Even if the structure of a cloned organ is initially formed, there is still a gap between its cellular function and that of a natural organ. Last year, I conducted an experimental project on cloning kidneys. The renal tubular epithelial cells of cloned kidneys were far less efficient and accurate than normal kidney cells in terms of reabsorption, secretion, and fine regulation of water and electrolyte balance. My preliminary conclusion is that this is due to the complex signal pathways, protein expression and synergy in the cells that have not yet reached the optimal physiological state, which has greatly reduced the overall function of the organs and made it difficult to maintain the body's metabolic homeostasis in a long-term and stable manner. Xiao Yu, who was standing next to him, glanced at Chu Jinming in surprise. This girl's doctoral degree certificate seemed to be very valuable and had real substance. Xiao Yu had never tried to get his hands on the advanced bioengineering technology in the Blue Star world. The main reason was that it was too far away from his major. Xiao Yu's plan was to create an organic body and give the second incarnation the identity of a biologist. Then Lingjing Technology invested, and Xiao Yu had a keen eye for talent, so he brought the bioengineering technology of the Blue Star world to Earth, thereby lighting up the biotechnology tree one by one. However, it would be very troublesome to create a second incarnation and forge an identity for it. Now it seems that there is no need to create a second incarnation. Chu Jinming is a very good candidate. Chapter 148, it has immeasurable significance for the progress of human society. Organ transplantation is an effective treatment for many end-stage organ diseases in the current medical field, but in this field, the current technological level on Earth is far inferior to that of the Blue Star world, and it faces huge difficulties. On a global scale, organ damage and death caused by traffic accidents, diseases, etc. have led to a large number of patients needing organ transplants, but the number of organs available for transplantation is extremely limited and far from meeting the demand. Data show that in North Magnesium, an average of 20 patients die every day while waiting for organ transplantation. In China, the supply-demand ratio of organ transplantation is about 1 to 30, and a large number of patients suffer from pain during the long wait, and die in despair as hope becomes increasingly slim. Traditional organ transplantation not only has a shortage of donors, but also has the thorny problem of immune rejection. After the organ is transplanted, the patient's immune system recognizes it as a foreign body, triggering an immune rejection reaction, which not only affects the function and survival rate of the organ, but also causes the patient to take immunosuppressants for a long time, and bears the risk of many side effects such as high drug costs and infection. If the monomer organ cloning technology can be realized, it will solve this series of difficulties by cultivating specific organs in vitro based on the patient's own cells to replace damaged or failing organs. The single organ cloning technology in the Blue Star world, under the action of a unique growth hormone, makes the metabolism of cell tissues so rapidly in a short period of time. This is what Xiao Yu did when he made a clone of an organic body. In just 1 month, the organic body was cultivated and cloned through an in vitro culture chamber. After developing into a mature body, it can stabilize again and return to the normal metabolic level of a living individual. The cultivation time of single organ clones will be shorter, and they can be cultivated in about 2 weeks. In other words, if a patient is diagnosed with a need to replace an organ, there is no need for a long and uncertain wait. Basically, the cloning of a single organ and the transplantation surgery can be completed within a month. This efficiency is unimaginable in the current Earth medical field. If the single organ cloning technology can be successfully realized and widely used, it will greatly change the existing medical landscape. From the perspective of patients, it can provide organs that are completely matched with themselves, effectively solve the problem of immune rejection, greatly improve the success rate of transplantation, prolong the life of patients, and improve the quality of life. From the perspective of medical development, single organ cloning technology will promote the vigorous development of multiple disciplines, such as regenerative medicine and cell biology, and promote the personalized and precise medical methods. From a social perspective, it can reduce the pressure on the allocation of medical resources, allowing more patients to rekindle their hope for life, while helping to alleviate a series of contradictions caused by organ shortages, especially the various dark events derived from the underground trade of organs. If the technology of single organ cloning can be realized and widely used, and the cost is lower than the current organ transplantation cost, then the underground transactions that are currently taking place will basically have no market, because other people's organs have the problem of immune rejection, and there are better substitutes, and buyers are unlikely to use them, and they are not open to the public. This kind of underground transaction will naturally die out due to the birth of single organ cloning technology, and to a certain extent, it will indirectly save a large number of innocent donors from dying, which is of immeasurable significance to the progress of human society. But at this moment, Xiao Yu had already made up his mind. He immediately turned his head to look at Chu Jingmen, who was sitting next to him, and said, "To overcome the technical difficulties of single organ cloning, you cannot rely on your single discipline alone. You need to gather the wisdom of multiple disciplines and work together." Xiao Yu thought about the cloning technology he learned on Blue Star and added, "The field of biology deeply explores the molecular mechanisms of cell differentiation and development, accurately analyzes the gene regulatory networks of neural guidance factors and angiogenic factors, and provides a theoretical blueprint for organ construction. Medical experts rely on clinical experience to optimize transplant surgery plans, accurately assess the risk of immune rejection, and formulate personalized treatment strategies." After a pause, Xiao Yu finally said, "In addition, those of us who are engaged in materials science develop new biocompatible materials to build ideal scaffolds for cell growth and organ formation, such as constructing scaffolds with bionic vascular structures to guide the orderly growth of vascular endothelial cells and promote the vascularization process." When Chu Jinming heard this, he looked up at Xiao Yu in surprise and said, "Brother-in-law, are you also studying biotechnology?" Xiao Yu said calmly, "It's barely a little, but definitely not as good as you, a cell biology professional with a doctorate degree." Speaking of which, Chu Jinming had already achieved remarkable results in several fields such as cell biology and regenerative medicine before she graduated. The key is that she is so young now, more than 2 years younger than Xiao Yu. How many people are in their 30s and have not yet graduated with a doctorate? She has achieved remarkable results at such a young age. It can be said that she has a bright future. At this time, Xiao Yu looked at Chu Jinming again and said, "Didn't you say you wanted to come work for me? Wait until I arrange for Lingjing Technology Company to set up a new bioengineering business department, and then you can come to work in that department." Hearing this, Chu Jinming's beautiful eyes flashed and she looked at Xiao Yu with joy. "Really? This is to set up a new business department specifically for my work and career? Brother-in-law, there is no need to spoil me so much." Xiao Yu immediately rolled his eyes at her. "You think too much? Whether you have this business or not, I will do it sooner or later. There was a development plan in this direction. You just happen to happen. The monomer organ cloning technology not only has broad prospects, but can also greatly combat the illegal underground organ trade. In order to obtain organ transplant donors, some powerful people will do anything to design and kill the people who match them in order to prolong their lives for a few more years. This is also an important reason why Xiao Yu decided to develop monomer organ cloning technology. As for the quote point, Xiao Yu knew that he could succeed 100%. The Blue Star world already had very advanced and mature cloning technology. In the eyes of others, it was indeed promising, but it was also difficult to realize this technology. However, there was no technical problem for Xiao Yu. Chu Jinming looked at Xiao Yu with a smile and said, "How could such a coincidence happen in the world? It was not established earlier or later, but you established it when I was out of work. There must be my factor in it. I knew that my position in my brother-in-law's mind was still very important." Right, she was right. It was indeed because of Chu Jingmen that Xiao Yu put the matter of bioengineering on the agenda at this time. After a while, Xiao Yu tilted his head to glance at her and then retracted his gaze, saying lightly, "Don't play tricks in front of me. I don't have seniority here. I can even let you lead the research of the project. There is no problem, but if you don't do well, I will still fire you." Xiao Yu didn't have any connections in the field of bioengineering. He obviously also took a fancy to Chu Jinming's connections in her field. At this time, Xiao Yu immediately added, "Before you join the company, I will assign you a task. You must find a way to recruit some of your capable senior brothers, sisters, junior brothers, and sisters, and even your mentors and professors." Chu Jinming heard this and agreed without thinking, "No problem, I will take care of this matter, but brother-in-law, the premise is that you must ensure that the project research funds are sufficient and the salary is in place. It can't be lower than the previous company. Then I can definitely help you get a luxurious top team in the industry. It seems that you are popular in your circle." Xiao Yu smiled. This is true. Chu Jinming has good looks, talents, and a lively and smart personality. Such a person will not have bad popularity anywhere. After a moment, Xiao Yu nodded readily and said, "You just paint a rosy picture for them. I will cover everything for you in the back, and funding and salary are never a problem for me." Chapter 149, The Chinese Want to Buy Graphene Materials. The matter was basically settled. After the important matters at hand were arranged properly, Lingjing Technology would officially open up the new business of bioengineering. Xiao Yu put away his thoughts, turned his head to glance at Chu Jinming and said, "Since you are developing in Linsao, I will ask Uncle Qin to arrange a place for you to live. Just let Uncle Qin know what kind of house you want to live in." Hearing this, Chu Jinming said without hesitation, "There is no need to be so troublesome. I will live here." After this, Xiao Yu was going to disagree, but he changed his mind and thought about it. Since he had decided to shape Chu Jinming into a genius in the field of life sciences, using her identity in the field of bioengineering as a cover to bring the cloning technology of the Blue Star world to Earth, he would have to communicate with her in the future and teach her the technology privately, which would be most convenient at home. After a moment, Xiao Yu said casually, "Okay, you don't need a room and a pair of chopsticks, you can live here if you want." Chu Jinming looked at Xiao Yu in surprise. I thought you would not agree." Xiao Yu glanced at her. "If you don't agree, you will definitely try to persuade me again, and I can't do anything to you in the end. You have to agree even if you don't agree. Let's just save the process and save the trouble." Hearing this, Chu Jinming covered her mouth and smiled sweetly. "This trick works every time on you, brother-in-law. Who told you to fall for it?" Xiao Yu shook his head helplessly, pretending to be too lazy to pay attention to her. At this time, the housekeeper Qin Yu came to the living room with a document to find Xiao Yu to sign. Seeing that he was with Chu Jingmen, Qin Yu thought for a while and then quietly retreated, choosing not to disturb him. However, Xiao Yu had already noticed it, and immediately said, "Uncle Qin, what's the matter?" Qin Yu, who was about to leave, walked over when he heard this. Chu Jinming suddenly stood up and said, "I'm going to take a shower." After that, she left the living room slowly. Xiao Yu glanced at Chu Jinming's back, and then looked at the documents brought by Qin Yu. The latter said, "All 35 villas in the villa area have been bought, and the owners who have moved in will move out within a week. The total expenditure is 3.195 billion yuan. Xiao Yu nodded and signed the document immediately. The total value of the 36 villas in the entire villa area is only more than 1.35 billion according to the current market price. It's just that Xiao Yu forcibly bought them all and drove people away. For this, he gave a premium as compensation, gave enough sincerity, and let others do it conveniently. About 3.2 billion yuan of funds is a small amount of money for Xiao Yu. Those owners naturally couldn't say no, and no one took the opportunity to raise the price. Those who can afford these luxury villas are all wealthy people with a net worth of over 100 million yuan, and those who have such a net worth must be smart, with no problem with their IQ and EQ. The world's richest man is sincere and does not use his power to pressure others. If he doesn't have this kind of vision and even wants to raise the price, he can't get to such a wealthy level. Even if Xiao Yu negotiates with them at the market price, they will probably agree. After all, Xiao Yu is now in his heyday and is someone they can't afford to offend. How dare they refuse to bargain with him? It's just that Xiao Yu didn't do that, and he wouldn't be so ugly, but satisfied his own needs and made others happy and willing to move away. After signing, Xiao Yu looked at Qin Yu and said, "Find a designer to replan this area, and demolish all those houses in the second half of next year." Qin Yu nodded, understood. The reason why the demolition was scheduled to be completed in half a year was of course for the underground operations. With the advanced technology and high efficiency level of the Blue Star world, the underground laboratory base can be built in about half a year, and then it can be expanded and excavated as needed. Moreover, in the initial construction stage, it is definitely not possible to dig under the villa where he lives now. After all, no matter how good the sound insulation is, there will be movement. Qin Yu and other domestic employees will notice that the basement is under construction, and Xiao Yu does not want others to know. However, this problem is easy to solve. Find one of the other 35 villas and then dig in its underground warehouse. At that time, a passage can be extended from the underground, or you can move directly to any villa to live. In this way, no one will notice. At that time, Xiao Yu only needs to open the teleportation star gate and keep it open. Let the robot construction team shuttle between the villa underground warehouse and the Blue Star world, transport materials from the Blue Star world, and throw the excavated soil to the Blue Star world. No one can find that an advanced large underground laboratory will emerge from the ground of this place. The next day, Chu Jingming stayed in the villa for one night. This morning, she had breakfast with Xiao Yu and then left Lin's house. Xiao Yu gave her a task to dig people, naturally for this matter. Half an hour later, Xiao Yu came to the headquarters of Lingjing Technology Company and called Yun Shu to the office. "What's the matter?" Yun Shu came to the office. Xiao Yu looked at the beautiful assistant who was walking towards him slowly, and then smiled and said, "To find a new business development for the company, I decided to enter the field of bioengineering." Yun Shu looked at her in surprise. "Bioengineering field? Such a big crossover." Xiao Yu nodded and said, "To be precise, it is the field of monomer organ cloning technology. The future prospects are very broad. The key is that I have discovered some talents and they are very promising." The so-called talents, naturally, refer to Chu Jingmen. Xiao Yu's plan is to make her a genius in this field. She already has a very good talent foundation in this field. She is the perfect fit, otherwise Xiao Yu would not have chosen her. After a moment, Xiao Yu thought and continued, "Let's make some preliminary preparations first, and then announce it next year." Yun Shu nodded and said, "Yes. The company has been suspended until now. When do you plan to apply for resumption of trading?" Hearing this, Xiao Yu said, "Wait a little longer. It will resume trading at the end of this month. The prototype of the Shenlong project of Avic Linfei will undergo superconducting suspension testing at the end of the month. When the news ferments, it will resume trading. Lingjing Technology has been suspended until now, and the suspended share price is 127.27 yuan, corresponding to a market value of 11.047 trillion yuan. After a while, when Xiao Yu was talking to Yun Shu, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." The two looked in the direction of the voice, and the person who walked in was the company's CEO Su Changming. He came to the sofa in the rest area of this office and sat down. He then looked at Xiao Yu and said, "Mr. Xiao, the people of Magnesium have come to negotiate for the purchase of graphene materials many times, and this time they sent people to talk again." Hearing this, Xiao Yu said without hesitation, "Graphene materials have been listed as export-controlled technical products by the country. What's the point of the people of Magnesium talking to me? Let them go to the relevant departments. Today I received the latest approval document from the upper department," Su Changming said, and then handed a copy of the approval document he brought with him to Xiao Yu, who took the document and opened it to browse through it. Haha, it turns out that Lao Mei has been asking for help from others in private. Xiao Yu couldn't help laughing as he browsed the content of the materials. Lao Mei has been communicating with the upper level recently, wanting to buy graphene materials from Lingjing Technology. And the latest notice from the upper level is that graphene materials can be used to talk to the people of magnesium about computing power chips. If the people of magnesium agree not to block the computing power resources, they may have a talk. However, Xiao Yu thinks this should be secondary. The problem of computing power chips blocking the neck is not unsolvable, and China is catching up very quickly in this area. It should be related to the emergence of room temperature superconducting materials. In order to appease Lao Mei's emotions and prevent him from taking risks during this vacuum period, after all, room temperature superconducting materials have been developed, but industrial upgrading cannot be completed in 1 or 2 years, so there is a vacuum period of a window. Since the country agrees to sell some to Lao Mei, then sell it, Xiao Yu put down the materials and added, 2 points, Lao Mei wants to buy, first, the price must go up, and second, the computing power resources must be continued for me. Now is not the time to develop quantum computers, and domestic substitution will not be so fast in the short term. If the computing power resources are continued, then AI Xiaojing can relax the user restrictions. Chapter 150, you said it was dumping when the price was low, but you were not happy when the price doubled. On the sofa in the office lounge area. After thinking for a while, Su Chengming looked at Xiao Yu and said, how much will the price of graphene materials sold to the Chinese people in China increase? Hearing this, Xiao Yu said without thinking, double the price according to the mainland price. Lingjing Technologies graphene materials have reduced the original market price of this industry by more than 10 to 20 times. Xiao Yu decided to double the price and sell it to the Chinese people in China. Compared with the previous market price or the supply price of other graphene products, it is still about 7 to 8 times to 10 times cheaper. As long as the demand is there, the Chinese people in China will buy it even if the price is doubled. Moreover, they cannot buy it freely because the quota is limited. Originally, Lingjing Technologies' production capacity is still in short supply compared to the total demand in the global market. Sitting with his back against the sofa, Xiao Yu said comfortably, when talking to them, there is no need to give in. If they want to buy, buy. If they don't want to buy, forget it. The computing power resources are only a temporary bottleneck for me. Breakthrough is a matter of time. I don't mind waiting. If we make money from the people of magnesium, it will be icing on the cake. If we don't make money, the company will still be happy. Hearing this, Su Chengming nodded, I understand, Lingjing Technology has a super strong technical monopoly. Others can't make it, or the cost is too high, and there is no market competitiveness at all. The key is that others can't do without your product. 2 days later, Su Chengming met with a business delegation of Liaomai again. What? The price is more than twice the purchase price of other manufacturers? You are slaughtering us like lambs, and it's blatant. The head of the Liaomai business delegation stayed in Bumbu on the spot after hearing Su Chengming's offer. In the negotiation meeting room, Su Chengming crossed his legs and said calmly, you guys from the magnesium country are really hard to please. Didn't you always say that our country's enterprises were dumping at low prices? Now I double the price for you, but it's not dumping, right? You see, you are not happy again. When the several old magnesium people present heard the translation of this, their eyelids twitched and their faces turned red. Old Su felt very happy at this moment. There were few people in the world who dared to be so disrespectful to the magnesium people, but Lingjing Technology had the confidence. His words were undisguised and face-to-face sarcasm, which was simply crazy. Obviously, he didn't care about the feelings of these magnesium people, and he didn't even care whether this order could be successful. However, the magnesium people care. They can't make such low-cost graphene materials by themselves, but this material is very important in the high-end industry and cannot be without it. Especially room temperature superconducting materials, they want to get them from Xiao Yu. Once room temperature superconductors enter the application stage and begin to be used on existing devices, such as mobile phones, computers, cars, and all other devices that humans can use electricity, the power will be ridiculously large, while the energy consumption will be frighteningly small. Without resistance, there is basically no heat dissipation requirement. Which means that there is not much energy waste. All electrical devices not only do not need large batteries, but also can achieve ultra-long battery life and ultra-high power. For example, the battery of current smartphones takes up a large space inside the phone, and the space inside the phone is very precious. After applying room temperature superconducting materials, the battery life of mobile phones can be improved, and the battery can be made smaller. The space saved can be stuffed with more electronic components, or the mobile phone can be designed to be thinner and lighter, which are all huge improvements to the product. When Su Changming had a face-to-face meeting with them this time, Xiao Yu had already explained it very clearly. If you want to buy it, and if you don't want to buy it, forget it. The huge domestic market has not yet met the demand. If the magnesium people don't buy it, these quotas will soon be snapped up by other domestic manufacturers. The huge domestic market size is the confidence to be so strong against the magnesium people. We cannot accept the two conditions you put forward. At this moment, the representative of the business delegation of Lao Magnesium said coldly. Hearing this, Su Changming immediately spread his hands and said lightly, then there is no need to talk any further. These two conditions cannot be compromised at all. As soon as this was said, the people of Liaomai left the scene in anger without any nonsense. The result of this negotiation was unpleasant. Liaomai had never been so angry before. He couldn't accept it for a while, and he couldn't save face. As a result, the negotiation was naturally in vain. The news soon reached Xiao Yu's ears. He was very calm about it and immediately called Su Changming back. Let's sit back and watch the performance of the people of May. I believe that they will request a meeting again in a few days. You just need to be prepared for the next negotiation. Su Changming's voice came from the other end of the phone. I'm already preparing. I don't expect today's meeting to lead to a result. It was really that Su Changming was too strong and even extremely contemptuous when he negotiated with him on behalf of Lingjing Technology. Even if the Chinese wanted to agree, they would definitely pretend to leave with a cold face. If they were ridiculed by others, it would be too embarrassing and humble if they had no temper. Su Changming knew this, and Xiao Yu knew it too. Otherwise, it would depend on the performance of the Chinese. Moreover, whether this deal can be completed or not, it has no big impact on Lingjing Technology. They are talking to the Chinese with an indifferent attitude. After all, the market is completely tilted towards the seller, and there are a lot of buyers queuing up. Lingjing Technology can be indifferent, but the Chinese can't. Those high-tech companies in North Magnesium are now in a hurry. For example, Apple, which was extremely arrogant before, has no AI, graphene full screen, graphene battery, and other things that greatly improve smartphones. Apple's current electronic products do not have it. The Xiaomi 12S Ultra, which was launched in July this year, sold well. In September, the Huawei M50 Pro was launched and sold out on the first day. The mobile phone manufacturers of Dongda next door have already begun to significantly upgrade the performance of their own smartphones around graphene materials. The application of graphene materials can be seen with the naked eye to improve the overall performance of mobile phones. On the other hand, the iPhone seems a bit outdated. Apple's very calm on the surface, looking indifferent and confident, but in fact it is very anxious and private. However, it is useless to be anxious, and the goods cannot be obtained. Other graphene manufacturers are not useful at all. Not to mention that they are more than 10 or 20 times more expensive. The quality of their products is not as good as that of Lingjing Technology. Moreover, graphene battery technology is also Lingjing Technology's unique technology. Other manufacturers have not solved some technical pain points of graphene batteries, only Lingjing Technology has solved them. For example, in actual applications, due to internal short circuits, overcharging or over-discharging of the battery, graphene batteries may generate a lot of heat, and even cause safety risks such as fire or explosion under impact and collision. These problems have been solved by Lingjing Technology, while other manufacturers cannot solve these problems. In short, all mobile phone manufacturers must either give up the application of graphene materials, or if they choose to use this material, they are doomed to be unable to bypass Lingjing Technology at present, including other high-end industrial enterprises that need to use this material. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.